I had just walked through the door from a week-long trip inspecting my properties when my little granddaughter tugged on my robe. Her eyes were glassy and her hands were trembling. Dad, she whispered, looking over her shoulder, can I stop taking the blue candy mom gives me? It makes me sleep and I see monsters. My blood ran cold. I told her to bring me the bottle. The label said children's vitamins. But when I took it for analysis that same night, the doctor turned pale. Luther, he said, his voice shaking, who is taking this? This is not a vitamin. This is a heavy antipsychotic used to sedate violent patients in asylums. Before I continue this story of how I had to destroy my own family to save it, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Hit like and subscribe if you believe that nobody hurts a child on your watch. My name is Luther Vance. I am 72 years old. I built half the skyline in Chicago with my own two hands, starting with nothing but a shovel and a bad attitude. I know how to spot a crack in a foundation before the building collapses, but I never saw the crack in my own home until that Tuesday evening. I had been away for 7 days, checking on a timber estate I own up north, a place nobody in my family knows about, because I learned a long time ago that money changes people. When I walked into the hallway of my main house, the silence was heavy. It was not the peaceful silence of a happy home, it was the heavy, suffocating silence of a hospital ward. I set my bag down, and that is when I saw her, Maya, my 7-year-old granddaughter, the light of my life. She was standing by the stairs, holding a ragged teddy bear I had bought her when she was born. She looked thin, too thin. Her skin, which usually glowed with health, looked grey and ash-like. She did not run to hug me like she usually did. She walked slowly like an old woman. That tug on my robe was the most terrifying moment of my life. Her whisper about the blue candy and the monster sent a shiver down my spine that had nothing to do with the winter wind outside. Where is your mother? I asked her, keeping my voice low. Maya pointed upstairs. She is streaming, she said. She is talking to the phone people about my sickness. Sickness, I frowned. When I left a week ago, Maya had a slight cold. Nothing more. Now she looked like she was fading away. I told Maya to go to the kitchen and get some juice. I watched her walk away and my heart broke. She stumbled twice, just crossing the rug. I walked into the kitchen. On the counter sat a row of medicine bottles, cough syrup, fever reducers, and a large colorful bottle of gummy vitamins. I picked it up. It rattled. I unscrewed the cap. Inside were the usual colorful bear-shaped gummies, but mixed in with them were small round blue pills. They were almost the same shade of blue as the berry gummies, but they were definitely not candy. They were chalky. Medical. I poured a few into my hand. They looked innocent enough, but 30 years in the construction business teaches you that the most dangerous things often look harmless until they bury you. I was about to put one in my pocket when I heard the click of heels on the tile behind me. Dad, a voice shrieked, "You are back early." It was Tiffany, my daughter in law. She was standing in the doorway holding a ring light and her phone. She was wearing full makeup and a designer dress that cost more than my first car, but her eyes were not happy to see me. They were darting from my face to the open bottle in my hand. I turned slowly. Tiffany, I said, keeping my face like stone. What are these blue things in Maya's vitamins? She laughed, but it was a nervous, high pitched sound. Oh, those. She walked over quickly and reached for the bottle. Those are just special herbal supplements the pediatrician recommended. Maya has been having such a hard week. Her fever spiked and she has been so delirious. The poor angel. She snatched the bottle from my hand a little too aggressively. I let her take it. I did not want to show my hand yet. Herbal supplements, I repeated. They look like prescription pills. Tiffany rolled her eyes. You know how holistic medicine is these days, Dad. It is all very advanced. I am just trying to help her sleep. She has been having night terrors. She keeps waking up screaming. It is exhausting for me. She sighed dramatically, adjusting her hair in the reflection of the microwave. I have been up all night with her. My fans on the live stream are so worried. They even donated $500 today for her care. I looked at her, really looked at her. There were no dark circles under her eyes. She smelled of expensive wine and perfume. She did not look like a mother who had been up all night nursing a sick child. She looked like a woman who was enjoying the attention of a tragedy a little too much. Where is Damon? I asked about my son. He is on the rig, she said, waving her hand dismissively. He has no signal. He feels terrible. He cannot be here. But I told him I have everything under control. I bet you do, I thought. I pretended to be the tired old man she thought I was. I rubbed my eyes. Well, I am exhausted. That drive from the airport was long. I think I will go to my room. Tiffany relaxed instantly. Her shoulders dropped. Good idea, Dad. You rest. I will give Maya her medicine and put her to bed. Do not worry about a thing. I nodded and walked toward the stairs, but I did not go to my room. I waited in the shadows of the hallway. I watched as Tiffany poured a glass of water. She shook two of the blue pills out of the bottle. She did not take any of the gummy bears, just the blue pills. She crushed them into a spoon of applesauce. I watched her feed it to Maya. Eat it all, sweetie, Tiffany said, her voice dripping with fake sugar. Mommy needs you to rest so you can look better for the video tomorrow. Maya ate it obediently, but I saw a tear roll down her cheek. As soon as Tiffany turned her back to rinse the spoon, I moved. I knew Tiffany kept the medicine cabinet key in a magnetic box on top of the fridge. I had seen her put it there months ago. I waited until she went into the living room to resume her live stream. I could hear her talking to her phone. Guys, thank you so much for the stars. Maya is resting now. It is so hard being a caregiver, but your support keeps me going. I slipped into the kitchen. My old joints protested, but I moved with the silence of a ghost. I climbed on the step stool. I found the key. I unlocked the high cabinet where she put the bottle. I did not take the whole bottle. That would raise an alarm. I poured about 10 of the blue pills into a napkin and shoved them into my pocket. I locked the cabinet. I put the key back. I went upstairs to my room, but I did not sleep. I sat in my leather armchair and stared at the blue pills in my hand. They were small, unmarked, deadly looking things. My gut was twisting. I had built this house for my son and his family. I paid the bills. I put food on the table. And under my roof, something evil was happening. At midnight, the house was quiet. I heard Tiffany snoring in the master suite. I put on my coat and went out the back door. I got into my truck and drove without turning on the headlights until I was down the street. I drove straight to the industrial district, to a nondescript brick building that housed a private toxicology lab. The owner was Dr. Evans. We went back 40 years. I had saved his practice from bankruptcy when the banks tried to foreclose on him in the 90s. He owed me. And he was the only man I trusted to keep his mouth shut. I banged on the metal door. It took 5 minutes for Evans to open up. He was wearing a lab coat over his pajamas. Luther, he squinted at me. It is 1 in the morning. I need you to run a test, I said, pushing past him. Now. I handed him the napkin. He looked at the blue pills and frowned. What is this? He asked. I do not know, I said. That is why I am here. But Evans, you need to tell me exactly what it is and what it does to a 50-pound child. Evans looked at me sharply. He saw the look in my eyes and didn't ask another question. He took the pills to his mass spectrometer. I sat on a metal stool and waited. The hum of the machines was the only sound. I thought about Damon, my son. He was a good man but weak. He worked on oil rigs 9 months out of the year because Tiffany demanded a lifestyle he could barely afford, even with my help. He worshipped the ground she walked on. He would never believe she was hurting their daughter, not without proof, hard scientific proof. I thought about Maya, the way she used to run through the sprinklers in the summer, the way she could recite the names of all the planets. Now she could barely walk. Monsters, she had said. 40 minutes passed. Then an hour. Finally, Evans came out of the back room. He was not holding a report. He was holding the wall as if he needed support. His face was grey. Luther, he said. What is it, Evans? Is it drugs? Is she drugging her to sleep? Evans shook his head. It is worse than that, Luther. This is clozapine, but it is a concentrated compound. It is an antipsychotic medication used for treatment-resistant schizophrenia. I stared at him. Schizophrenia. Maya is 7. Exactly, Evans said, his voice rising. This drug has severe side effects. Sedation is just the beginning. It causes tremors, it causes muscle rigidity, it causes hallucinations in healthy brains. But Luther, the most dangerous part is what it does to the white blood cells. It depletes them. It compromises the immune system. He walked closer to me. If a child takes this regularly, they will get sick, very sick. They will catch every cold, every flu. They will look like they are dying. Their organs will start to shut down. My hands clenched into fists so tight my knuckles cracked. Is it lethal? I asked. Evans nodded grimly. In these doses, absolutely. It is a slow kill. It makes the victim look like they have a chronic wasting disease, is a mystery illness that doctors cannot diagnose because they are looking for a virus, not a poisoning. Who is taking this, Luther? I did not answer. I stood up. The room felt small. I felt a rage I had not felt since my days in the union fights. Tiffany was not just a bad mother. She was not just lazy. She was a monster. She was making Maya sick on purpose. She was destroying my granddaughter's health to play the victim on social media, to get attention, to get money. It was Munchausen by proxy. I had heard of it on the news, but I never thought it would be sitting at my breakfast table. I thanked Evans. I told him to keep the official report safe and not to digitalize it yet. I walked out into the cold Chicago night. I sat in my truck for a long time. I wanted to drive home, wake Tiffany up, and throw her out the window. I wanted to call the police, but then I stopped. I took a breath. If I called the police now, Tiffany would spin it. She would say I was a senile old man. She would say I planted the pills. She would say it was an accident. Damon was away. He would fly home and defend her. She was a white woman with a sick child and a social media following. I was a big angry black man with a history of being difficult. The system was not built to believe me over her. No, I needed more than a lab report. I needed to catch her in the act. I needed to expose the whole rot. I needed to burn her world down so completely that even Damon could not look away. I started the engine. I drove back to the house. I parked the truck. I crept back into my room. As I lay in the dark listening to the silence of the house, I made a promise to the ceiling. You picked the wrong family, Tiffany, I whispered. You think I am just an old man with a checkbook. You forgot that before I was a rich man, I was a dangerous man. I closed my eyes. The war had started, and Tiffany had no idea she was already losing. The next morning, the sun came up, but the house felt darker than night. I went down to the kitchen. Tiffany was already there blending a smoothie. She looked fresh, rested. Good morning, Dad, she chirped. Did you sleep well? I looked at her. I looked at the blender. Like a baby, I lied. Maya came into the kitchen. She was dragging her feet. Her hands were shaking as she reached for a cup of water. Mum, she whined. My tummy hurts, Tiffany sighed, rolling her eyes at me before turning a sympathetic face to Maya. I know, baby. It is the sickness. Come here. Let mommy give you your special medicine. She reached for the blue bottle. I gripped my coffee mug. I wanted to smash it across the room, but I did not. I took a sip. That looks like strong stuff, I said casually. Maybe we should get a second opinion. I have a friend at the university hospital. Tiffany froze. Her hand hovered over the bottle. She turned to me and her mask slipped for just a second. Her eyes were hard, cold. We love Dr. Peters, she said sharply. He knows Maya's history. Changing doctors now would be traumatic for her. Besides, Damon agrees with me. She invoked my son's name like a shield. Is that so? I said. Well, you know best. I stood up. I walked over to Maya and kissed her forehead. Her skin was burning. I have some errands to run, I said. I walked out the door. I did not go to run errands. I went to a spy shop on the south side. I bought 4 pinhole cameras and a long range listening device. When I got back, Tiffany was out. I spent 2 hours installing the cameras, one in the kitchen, one in the living room, one in Maya's stuffed bear, and one in Tiffany's bedroom. I sat in my study and turned on the monitor. The screen flickered to life. I saw Tiffany walk into the room. She was on the phone. Chad, baby, she was saying. No, the old man is back. It is a pain, but do not worry. He is old. He does not notice anything. I will get the money from him soon. Just be patient. She laughed. It was a cruel sound. I leaned back in my chair. Chad, so there was a man too? Good, I thought. The more sins you have, the easier it will be to bury you. I watched as she hung up and walked over to Maya, who was sleeping on the couch. Tiffany poked her awake. Wake up, she hissed. We have to do a video. Try to look sadder. My jaw tightened. Enjoy your video, Tiffany, I said to the screen, because it is going to be part of the documentary of your downfall. This was just the beginning. I had the pills, now I had the cameras. But I needed to isolate her, I needed to cut off her money, and I needed to get Damon home without her knowing why. I reached for my phone and dialed my bank manager. Block the supplementary cards, I said. All of them. Tell her it is a system error. I hung up. Let the games begin. Over the next 3 days, I watched my house turn into a theater of horrors where the audience was the internet and the victim was my own flesh and blood. I stayed quiet. I stayed in the shadows. I watched as Maya deteriorated right before my eyes. It was a slow and painful decline that tore at my heart with every passing hour. At breakfast, her hand shook so badly she could not hold her spoon. The milk splashed onto the table, and she looked at me with terror in her eyes, waiting to be scolded. She wet the bed every night. I saw her trying to hide the sheets in the laundry hamper, her little face burning with shame. Tiffany did not help her, she exploited her. I sat in the living room pretending to read a newspaper while Tiffany typed furiously on her phone. I opened my own fake Facebook account, which I had made years ago, to keep an eye on my competitors, and looked up her page. There it was, a photo of the wet sheets, a photo of Maya's trembling hands. The caption read, Pray for my baby girl. The doctors say it is a rare genetic condition from her father's side. The Vance family genes are cursing her, but I will never give up. I gripped the paper until it tore. The Vance family genes, my genes. She was blaming me. She was blaming my ancestors. She was painting a picture where she was the martyr fighting against a cursed bloodline. I had worked steel and concrete for 40 years. I was strong. My father was strong. There was no genetic curse. There was only poison. I knew I had to move fast. The lab report was locked in my safe, but a piece of paper would not stop a mother from destroying her child if she was determined. I needed eyes everywhere. I needed to see what happened when the doors were closed. I went to my workshop in the basement. I dug out my old tool belt. It felt heavy and familiar around my waist. I took the pinhole cameras I had bought. These were not the cheap nanny cams you buy at the mall. These were military grade, high definition, long battery life, the kind we used on high security construction sites to catch corporate sabotage. I started with Maya's room. I waited until Tiffany took her to a supposed therapy appointment, which I suspected was just a cover for something else. I went into my granddaughter's room. It smelled of lavender and sickness. On her bed sat Mr. Cuddles, the worn out teddy bear I had given her for her third birthday. It was the only thing she slept with. I performed surgery on the bear. I carefully undid the stitching in the left eye. I inserted the camera lens, replacing the plastic pupil. I ran the thin wire down into the stuffing and hid the battery pack deep in the belly. I sewed it back up with the precision of a surgeon. Now Mr. Cuddles could see everything, and I moved to the master bedroom. Tiffany and Damon's room. I hated going in there. The air was thick with her perfume and the smell of lice. I dragged a ladder in and removed the smoke detector cover on the ceiling. I wired a camera directly into the power source so it would never run out of juice. It gave me a perfect bird's eye view of the entire room, including the bed and the safe in the closet. I finished just as I heard the garage door open. They were back. That evening, the tension in the house was thick enough to choke on. We sat down for dinner, but nobody was eating. Maya was slumped in her chair, her eyes half closed. Tiffany was pacing the kitchen, holding her phone, checking notifications. Damon is calling, she announced, her voice tight. Everyone smiled. We do not want him to worry more than he has to. She propped the iPad up on the table. The screen lit up, and there was my son. He looked exhausted. He was wearing his orange coveralls, his face smeared with grease and dirt from the oil rig. The connection was grainy, but I could see the lines of stress etched deep into his forehead. Hey guys, he said, trying to sound cheerful. How is my princess? Tiffany immediately burst into tears. It was a performance worthy of an Oscar. She threw herself into the chair next to Maya and wrapped her arms around the girl's frail shoulders. Oh, Damon, she sobbed. It has been such a hard week. The tremors are getting worse. Dr. Peters says she needs a new treatment. It is experimental. It is not covered by insurance. Damon's face fell. How much is it, Tiff? $10,000. She wept, wiping her dry eyes. We need it by Friday or we lose the spot. I do not know what to do, Damon. I am selling my jewelry. I am doing everything I can. I sat there tuning my stick, slowly feeling the rage boiling in my gut. She was selling nothing. She was buying designer bags and paying for her lover's car. Damon looked at me through the screen. His eyes were pleading. Dad, he said, can you help us, please? I know things are tight with the economy, but you have your pension. You have savings. This is Maya we are talking about. I put my fork down. I looked at my son. He was a good man, but he was blind. He saw a crying wife and a sick child. He did not see the predator and the prey. I do not have $10,000 lying around. Damon, I lied, my voice steady. My assets are tied up in the estate trust. It takes time to liquidate. Tiffany looked at me with pure venom. Her tears stopped instantly. You are lying, she hissed. I saw the mail. You get checks. You just do not want to help. You hate me, so you are punishing Maya. Damon's voice cracked over the speakers. Dad, how can you be so cold? That is your granddaughter. You used to buy her everything. Now, when she is dying, you clutch your wallet. I'm out here breaking my back on this rig for them, and you are sitting there in the house I pay for, refusing to help. The house he paid for. I almost laughed. I had paid off the mortgage 5 years ago secretly, so he would not have the debt. He sent money every month, thinking it went to the bank, but it went into a savings account I set up for Maya. He did not know. He did not know anything. I am not refusing, Damon, I said calmly. I am saying I need to see the medical paperwork. I want to talk to this Dr. Peters myself before I sign a check for that amount. Tiffany clamped her hand on the table, making Maya jump. He does not trust me, Damon, she screamed. He thinks I am making it up. Look at her. Look at your daughter. Does she look like she's faking it? She grabbed Maya's face and shoved it toward the camera. Maya looked terrified. Her skin was pale and sweaty. Daddy, she whispered. I want to sleep. Damon looked like he was about to cry. Dad, just fix this, please. I will pay you back every cent when I get my bonus. Just do not let my little girl suffer. I stood up. I could not take it anymore. I will see what I can do, I said. I walked out of the kitchen, leaving them to their drama. I heard Damon apologizing to Tiffany, telling her I was just a stubborn old man, that he would find a way to get the money. I went straight to my study and locked the door. This was my sanctuary, the one room Tiffany was not allowed to enter. I sat down in front of my computer and pulled up the feed from the new cameras. I had four screens: the kitchen, the living room, Tiffany's bedroom, and Maya's room. I watched as Tiffany ended the call with Damon. As soon as the screen went black, her demeanor changed instantly. The tears vanished. The slumped shoulders straightened. She looked at Maya with disgust. You were terrible, she snapped. You barely spoke. How is your father supposed to send money if you do not act sick enough? Maya started to cry softly. I am sick, mommy. I feel dizzy. Tiffany rolled her eyes. Go to your room and take Mr. Cuddles. I do not want to see you until morning. Maya slid off the chair, dragging the teddy bear. I watched on the screen as she walked slowly up the stairs and into her room. I switched to the camera in the bear. I could see the ceiling of her room as she carried it. Then she climbed into bed and hugged the bear tight. The camera was now pointed directly at her face. It was heartbreaking. She was shivering. Her pupils were dilated. Then the door opened. Tiffany walked in. She was holding the blue bottle. Time for your medicine, she said. No, mommy, please, Maya begged, pulling the covers up. I do not want the blue candy. It makes the shadows move. Shut up, Tiffany hissed. She grabbed Maya's jaw and squeezed it open. I watched in high definition horror as she forced two pills into the child's mouth and held her nose until she swallowed. There, she said, wiping her hand on her dress. Now go to sleep. Mommy has work to do. Tiffany left the room, but she did not go to bed. I switched the feed to the master bedroom. She set up her ring light. She checked her hair in the mirror. She pulled her shirt down slightly to show more cleavage. Then she hit record. That her face had transformed. She looked tragic, brave. Hi guys, she whispered into the phone, her voice trembling. I just wanted to give you an update. It has been a brutal night. Maya is crashing. Her grandfather won't help us. He is so cruel. We are all alone in this. She paused to wipe a fake tear. If you can spare anything, please click the link in my bio. We need to get her this special treatment. I am a mama bear and I will fight for my cub, but I am running out of strength. I watched the comments roll in on the side of her screen. People were sending hearts, prayers, and money. I saw the donation counter ticking up. $50, 100, 500. She was selling her daughter, suffering. She was poisoning her own child to fund her lifestyle and creating a narrative where I was the villain and she was the saint. I leaned back in my chair. The darkness of the room wrapped around me. You want a villain, Tiffany? I whispered to the screen. You got one? But you are looking in the wrong direction. I picked up my phone and called the only person who could help me navigate the legal hell I was about to enter. Thaddeus Ray. He was an ex-detective who got kicked off the force for being too rough with the bad guys. Now he worked for people who needed problems solved quietly. Ray, I said when he answered. Luther, he rumbled. It has been a while. I have a job for you, I said. It involves a cheating wife, a poisoned child, and a lot of money. I need you to dig into Tiffany's past. I want to know who Chad is. I want to know where she goes. I want to know what she spends every dime on. And Ray, I want it fast. Consider it done, Ray said. I hung up. On the screen, Tiffany was blowing kisses to her donors, thanking them for saving her baby. I watched Maya in the other window. She was tossing and turning, fighting the chemicals in her blood. Sleep tight, little one, I thought. Grandpa is on the watch now, and tomorrow I am going to start burning their world down. The next morning started with the smell of expensive perfume masking the scent of betrayal. I sat at the kitchen island drinking black coffee and watching Tiffany get ready. She was not wearing the sweatpants of a grieving, exhausted mother. She was wearing a tight red dress that hugged curves my son paid for and heels that clicked aggressively against the hardwood floor. She was applying lipstick with the precision of a sniper checking a scope. Where are you going? I asked, my voice gravelly from lack of sleep. Therapy, she said without looking at me. She smacked her lips together, checking the color in her compact mirror. Dr. Aris says I need to process my trauma. Watching Maya suffer is destroying me inside. Dad, you have no idea what it is like to feel so helpless. I looked at her reflection. She did not look helpless. She looked like a predator preparing for a hunt. Dr. Aris, I repeated. Is he new? He is a specialist, she said, snapping the compact shut. He deals with caregiver burnout. It is very expensive, but Damon insisted. He wants me to be strong for Maya. She grabbed her designer purse, the one that cost $3,000, and headed for the door. Do not wait up. After the session, I am going to meditate in the park. I need to ground myself. As soon as the heavy oak door clicked shut, I was moving. I grabbed my keys and went out the back way to the detached garage where I kept my old work truck. It was a rusted Ford F50 from 98. Tiffany hated it. She said it lowered the property value of the neighborhood, but she never noticed it. To her, it was just invisible junk, perfect for tailing someone who only looked at shiny things. I waited until her white Mercedes turned the corner, then I pulled out. I kept two cars between us. I had learned how to tail people back when I was dealing with union busters and crooked inspectors. You never look directly at the target, you look through the windshield of the car in front of you. She did not drive to the medical district. She did not drive to any office park. She got on the expressway and headed downtown toward the Gold Coast, the part of Chicago where the rent for a studio apartment could feed a family of four for a year. She pulled into the underground garage of a glass tower called the Sovereign. I knew the building. I had poured the foundation for it 15 years ago. I knew there was a side entrance for service vehicles that led to the same elevator bank. I parked my truck in the loading zone and put on a high visibility vest I kept under the seat. Nobody looks twice at an old black man in a construction vest carrying a clipboard. I walked right past security, nodding like I belonged there. I watched the floor indicator. She got off on the penthouse level. Of course she did. I took the service elevator up. When the doors opened, I heard laughter. It was not the sound of therapy, it was the sound of a party. I crept down the hallway. The door to Forby was slightly ajar. Tiffany was careless. Arrogance does that to people, it makes them sloppy. I peered through the crack. The apartment was sleek, modern, and cold. And there was Tiffany. She was in the arms of a man who was definitely not a doctor. He was huge, muscles on top of muscles, wearing a tank top that showed off tribal tattoos. He looked like he spent more time looking in the mirror than reading books. This had to be Chad. Oh, baby, Tiffany purred, running her hands over his biceps. You have no idea how boring it is at that house. The old man is watching me like a hawk. He is so creepy. Chad laughed, a deep empty sound. Do not worry about him, Tiff. Just keep your eyes on the prize. Did the transfer come through? Tiffany pulled away from him and reached into her purse. She pulled out a thick envelope. 10,000, she said, tossing it on the glass coffee table. Damon sent it for Maya as a special treatment, and the GoFundMe hit 5,000 this morning. People are so stupid, Chad. They see a crying mom and they just open their wallets. My blood boiled. I felt a heat rise in my chest that made me dizzy. That was my granddaughter's life she was talking about. She was selling Maya's pain to pay for this meathead. Chad picked up the envelope and fanned himself with the cash. You are a genius, babe. So are we doing this? Tiffany grinned. Come to the window. They walked to the floor to ceiling window that overlooked the street. I moved closer, pressing my ear to the gap. Look down there, she said, pointing. I risked a glance. Parked right in front of the building in a no parking zone was a brand new matte black Range Rover. It still had the red bow on the hood. Happy birthday, Chad, she squealed. Chad let out a whoop of joy that shook the walls. And then, no way, you got the spot package. Fully loaded, Tiffany said, wrapping her arms around his neck. Only the best for you. I told Damon the money went to a specialist in Switzerland. He bought it hook, line, and sinker. I stepped back from the door, my hand trembling, not from fear, but from the effort it took not to kick that door down and beat Chad within an inch of his life. I wanted to. God knows I wanted to. I imagined wrapping my hands around his thick neck. I imagined smashing Tiffany's perfect teeth. But I stopped. If I went in there now, what would happen? They would call the police. I would be the violent ex-con father-in-law breaking into a private residence. Tiffany would spin it. She would say, I was stalking her. She would say, the money was for something else. She would claim Chad was her security guard. She was a master liar and I was just an angry old man with no proof except my word. And Damon would be torn. He would see his father attacking his wife. No, I needed to be smarter. I needed to catch them in a way they could not talk their way out of. I needed to cut the head off the snake, not just poke it. I took out my phone and carefully, silently recorded a video through the crack in the door. I got Chad counting the cash. I got Tiffany pointing at the car. I got them kissing. Then I turned around and walked away. The walk back to the elevator was the longest walk of my life. Every step felt heavy with the weight of what I knew. My son was working himself to the bone on an oil rig, thinking he was saving his daughter, while his wife was buying luxury cars for a boyfriend with the money. I got back to my truck and sat there for a moment, breathing hard. My chest hurt. I took a pill for my blood pressure. I could not die yet, not until I finished this. I drove straight to a diner on the south side, the kind of place where the Coffee tastes like battery acid and nobody asks questions. I sat in a booth in the back and dialed a number. Ray, I said when he picked up, I need to see you. Now, Thaddeus Ray walked in 20 minutes later. He looked like a retired linebacker who had seen too many crime scenes. He slid into the booth opposite me. You look like hell, Luther, he said. I feel like it, I replied. I slid the phone across the table and played the video. Ray watched it in silence. His face did not move, but his eyes darkened. That is the wife, he asked. That is the wife, I said. And the guy is Chad, her personal trainer, or whatever he is. Ray, they bought that car with money meant for my sick granddaughter. Ray pushed the phone back. That is low, Luther. Even for the people I usually deal with. That is bottom of the barrel. I need you to dig, Ray, I said, leaning forward. I need to know where the money is going, all of it. I want to know how many accounts she has. I want to know whose name is on that apartment. I want to know everything. Ray took out a small notebook. I have been digging since you called me yesterday, Luther, and you are not going to like what I found. Try me, I said. Ray flipped a page. Tiffany is not just spending Damon's salary, she has opened 5 lines of credit in his name, maxed out. But that is small potatoes. He looked up at me and his expression was grim. She visited a title company last week, Luther, and a notary who lost his license 3 years ago for fraud. I frowned. What for? Ray tapped the table with a thick finger. The house, Luther. Your house, the one you live in, the one you think is safe. What about it? I asked, a cold knot forming in my stomach. She is refinancing it, Ray said quietly. She is taking out a second mortgage, a hard money loan, high interest, fast cash, $300,000. That is impossible, I said, my voice rising. The deed is in my name. The house is paid off. I have the papers in my safe. She cannot touch it without my signature. Ray looked at me with pity. Luther, she has your signature. Or at least she has a version of it that looks good enough for a crooked notary. The paperwork is already filed. The closing is scheduled for next Friday. If that goes through, you won't just be living with a snake. You will be living in a foreclosed home. I sat back against the vinyl booth. The room spun. She forged my signature. She was stealing my home, my legacy, the house I built brick by brick for my family. It is not just the money, Ray continued relentlessly. It is the intent. You do not take out a loan like that unless you plan to disappear or unless you think the owner isn't going to be around to object. I looked at Ray. She thinks I'm going to be dead, I whispered, or locked away. Exactly, Ray said. She is cashing out, Luther. She is liquidating everything before she makes her final move. I slammed my fist on the table, rattling the silverware. She wants war, I growled. I stood up. I threw a 20 on the table. Keep digging, Ray. Get me the name of that notary. Get me the loan documents. I want hard copies. Where are you going? Ray asked. I am going home, I said. I have a granddaughter to protect, and I have a house to save. I walked out of the diner. The wind was biting, but I didn't feel it. All I felt was the cold clarity of a man who had nothing left to lose. Tiffany had made a fatal mistake. She thought she was stealing from a senile old man. She didn't realize she was stealing from Luther Vance. And I had buried men for less. Next Friday, I thought, the closing is next Friday. That gave me 4 days. 4 days to turn the hunter into the prey. The war inside my house shifted gears the next morning. It moved from the shadows into the bright, harsh light of psychological warfare. Tiffany knew she could not physically force me out of the house I built. I was 72, but I was still 6'2" and made of iron. So she decided to attack the one thing a man of my age fears losing more than his strength. His mind. It started with small things, the kind of things that make you question your own sanity. I would leave my truck keys on the hook by the door where I had left them every day for 30 years. But when I went to reach for them, they were gone. I would spend an hour tearing the house apart, my heart hammering in my chest, thinking that maybe the memory loss I had seen in my own father was finally coming for me. Then I would find them. They would be in the freezer or in the bathroom cabinet inside a bottle of aspirin. Tiffany would stand in the doorway watching me, search her face, a mask of pity that made my skin crawl. Oh, Dad, she would say, her voice dripping with fake concern. You put them there yesterday. Do you not remember? You said you wanted to keep them cold. Do you not remember saying that? I did not say that. I knew I did not say that. But when someone tells you the sky is green enough times, you start to squint at the clouds, and then the furniture started moving. I would go out to the garden to check on the roses, and when I came back in, the coffee table would be 3 inches to the left. Just enough to catch my shin, just enough to make me stumble. Careful, Dad, Tiffany would shriek, rushing over to grab my arm like I was an invalid. You have to lift your feet, you are getting so clumsy lately. Damon is so worried about your balance. She was gaslighting me. She was trying to paint a picture of a senile old man who was a danger to himself, and she was using chemicals to help the paint dry. It was the tea. Every afternoon at 4 o'clock, she would bring me a cup of herbal tea. It is good for your blood pressure, she insisted. It is an ancient blend. The first few times I drank it, I felt a heaviness settle behind my eyes. The room would tilt slightly. My tongue would feel too big for my mouth. I would lose time. I would sit in my chair at 4:15 and suddenly it would be 6 o'clock and I would have no memory of the hour in between. I knew she was dosing me, but I needed proof and I needed to survive the humiliation she had planned for Friday night. She organized a small dinner party. She invited the neighbors, the Millers from next door, and the Johnsons from across the street. Good people, people who had known me for 20 years, people who respected Luther Vance. Tiffany came to my room at 5. Dad, she said, knocking loudly. The guests are here. Come down and say hello. Be social for once. I was sitting on the edge of my bed. I felt groggy. The tea she had given me an hour ago was fighting with my will to stay awake. I had dressed in my best slacks and a crisp button down shirt. I wanted to look sharp. I wanted to show the neighbors that the rumors Tiffany was spreading were lies. I stood up. The floor swayed. I gritted my teeth and forced my legs to work. I walked to the door. I walked down the stairs. I could hear laughter in the living room, glasses clinking, and I walked into the room. Good evening, everyone, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. The room went silent. The laughter died in their throats. Mrs. Miller put her hand over her mouth. Mr. Johnson looked away, his face turning red. I frowned. What was wrong? Then I looked down. I was not wearing my slacks. I was wearing my flannel pajama bottoms, the ones with the faded plaid pattern, and my dress shirt was buttoned wrong. I had missed a button, so my undershirt was showing. I stared at my legs and I remembered putting on the slacks. I remembered the feel of the belt. I remembered zipping the zipper. Tiffany gasped. It was a loud, theatrical sound. She rushed over to me, her face a portrait of mortified concern. Oh, Dad, she cried loud enough for everyone to hear. Oh no, you forgot your pants again. You just came down in your pajamas. She turned to the neighbors, her eyes wide. I am so sorry, everyone. He gets confused in the evenings. It is the sundowning. The doctor warned us about this. The neighbors nodded sympathetically. Poor Luther, Mr. Johnson muttered. It happens fast at that age. My blood boiled. I felt the heat rise up my neck. I looked at Tiffany. She was gripping my arm, her nails digging into my skin. There was a triumph in her eyes that only I could see. She had come into my room while I was passed out from her drug tea. She had changed my clothes. She had stripped a grown man of his dignity to prove a point. I pulled my arm away from her. I stood up straight. I fought the drug in my system with every ounce of rage I had left. I did not forget anything, Tiffany. I rumbled, my voice low and dangerous. I put on my grey slacks, the ones with the sharp crease. I know exactly what I put on. Tiffany sighed, shaking her head sadly. Okay, Dad, of course you did. Come on, let us get you back upstairs before you have an accident. She was treating me like a toddler. She was invalidating my reality in front of my peers. I looked at the neighbors. I am fine, I said. I am just tired. I turned and walked out of the room. I did not run. I did not stumble. I walked with the dignity of a king who had been stripped of his robes but not his power. As I climbed the stairs, I heard Tiffany whispering to Mrs. Miller. It is getting worse, she said. Yesterday he tried to pee in the potted plant. I do not know how much longer I can keep him here safely. I am scared he is going to hurt Amaya. I reached my room and locked the door. I leaned against it, breathing hard. My hands were shaking not from age but from the desire to strangle her. She had won this round. She had successfully planted the seed of my insanity in the community. Now she just needed to water it. The next morning she brought me the tea again. Here, Dad, she said, smiling sweetly. Drink this. It will help you clear your head after last night. You seemed so disoriented. I took the cup. It smelled of peppermint and something metallic. Thank you, Tiffany, I said. I will drink it while I read my book. She hovered for a moment, watching me. I brought the cup to my lips. I pretended to sip. Good, I said. She smiled and left the room. As soon as she was gone, I got up. I walked over to the large potted ficus plant in the corner of my study. It was a healthy tree, 6 feet tall with glossy green leaves. I had watered it for 10 years. I am sorry, old friend, I whispered to the tree. I poured the entire contents of the cup into the soil. Then I sat back down and waited. I waited to see what would happen to the tree. And I waited to hear what Tiffany would do next. 2 days later, the ficus tree was dead. The leaves had turned a sickly yellow and fallen off in clumps. The branches were brittle. The soil smelled sour. I stared at the dead tree. That was what she was putting in my body. That was what was making me dizzy. That was what was stealing my memory. It was not dementia. It was poison. She was killing me slowly, just like she was killing Maya. But with me, she added the psychological torture. She wanted me to believe I was losing my mind, so I would sign the papers willingly. I took photos of the dead tree. I took a sample of the soil and put it in a Ziploc bag to give to Evans. That evening, I was prowling the hallway upstairs. The house was quiet. Maya was asleep or sedated in her room. I heard a voice coming from the guest bedroom down the hall. It was Tiffany. She used that room as her office. The door was cracked open an inch. I moved closer. I held my breath. She was on the phone. Her voice was different. It was not the sweet voice of the caring mother or the concerned daughter in law. It was cold, hard, businesslike. Yes, I know the requirements, she was saying. I have the incidents documented. The neighbors saw him in his pajamas. He was aggressive. He was confused. She paused, listening. Yes, I have a doctor lined up. Dr. Aris will sign anything for the right price. I already paid him the retainer. My heart hammered against my ribs. Dr. Aris, the therapist, the man who was supposedly helping her with her trauma, he was part of it. Listen to me, she hissed into the phone. The old man is about to crack. He is scared. He thinks he is losing it. I need those papers ready by Monday. As soon as I get the competency hearing scheduled, I am driving him to the facility myself. She laughed. A low, dark sound. No, not the one in the city. That is too expensive. I found one upstate. It is a state funded. It is a dump, but who cares? He won't know the difference. Once he is locked up and medicated, he will be out of the picture for good. I pressed my ear closer to the wood. And the house, she asked. Good. Have the buyers ready. I want to close the sale the same week he gets committed. I want the cash in the Cayman account before Damon even gets off that rig. I stepped back. The floorboard creaked. Tiffany stopped talking. I froze. Hello, she called out. Is someone there? I did not answer. I moved silently back toward my room. I heard her footstep approaching the door. I slipped into my room and closed the door. Just as she poked her head into the hallway, I threw myself into the armchair and picked up a book, my heart racing like a trapped bird. The door handle turned. Tiffany pushed the door open. She looked at me. Her eyes were narrow, suspicious. Dad, she said, were you in the hallway? I looked up over my reading glasses. I let my hand tremble slightly. What I asked, my voice sounding weak. No, I have been here reading. What time is it? Did I miss dinner? She stared at me for a long second, searching for a crack in my act. Then she smirked. You ate dinner 2 hours ago, Dad. She lied. You really are losing it. She closed the door. I waited until I heard her walk away. Then I let the book drop. She was going to commit me. She was going to throw me into a state-run hellhole and sell my home. And she was going to do it by Monday. Monday. That was 3 days away. I looked at the dead ficus tree in the corner. Its skeletal branches seemed to point at me in warning. I had the evidence of the drugs. I had the evidence of the affair. But now I had the timeline. I could not wait for the perfect moment anymore. I had to strike, but first I had to save the most important hostage in this house. I had to save Maya. If I went down, I was going down swinging, but I wasn't going to let that little girl stay in this house of horrors 1 second longer than necessary. I stood up. The grogginess was gone, replaced by a cold, hard resolve. You want to talk about insanity, Tiffany, I thought. You are about to see what a crazy old man can really do. It was 2 in the morning and the silence in the house was heavy enough to crush a man. I was sitting in my study, staring at the monitors, my eyes burning from exhaustion, but sleep was a luxury I could not afford, not tonight. Tiffany had left 3 hours ago, dressed in a skirt that was little more than a belt and a top that sparkled under the hallway lights. She told me she was going to a late-night yoga retreat to center her chakra. I watched the GPS tracker I had Ray installed on her car. She was centered right in the middle of the Velvet Lounge, a high-end club downtown where the cocktails cost $20 and the morals were free. But I was not watching her dot on the map. I was watching the feed from Mr. Cuddles. Maya was moving. It was not the tossing and turning of a restless sleeper. It was the thrashing of a child in distress. Through the grainy night vision, I could see her small chest heaving. She was clawing at her throat. I did not think. I moved. I ran up the stairs, my bad knee protesting with every step, but I ignored the pain. I pushed open her door and the heat hit me like a physical blow. The room was stifling. The radiator was cranked up to the maximum. Tiffany must have done it before she left to sweat out the sickness she claimed Maya had. I rushed to the bed. Maya was burning up. Her skin was dry and papery, like old parchment. Her hair was plastered to her forehead. She was mumbling in her sleep words that made no sense, terrified little whimpers about shadows and teeth. Maya, baby, I whispered. Grandpa is here. She did not wake up. Her eyes fluttered open, but they were unseeing. They were glazed over, swimming in the fever and the drugs. Hot, she moaned. So hot. I cursed Tiffany to the deepest pit of hell. She had drugged the child and then turned the room into an oven. It was dangerous. It could cause seizures. I turned off the radiator and threw open the window to let the crisp Chicago night air flow in. Then I went to the bathroom. I did not look for Tylenol or whatever poison Tiffany had in the cabinet. I went back to my roots. I went back to the way my mother healed us when we were too poor for doctors and too proud for charity. I got a basin of cool water. I went to the kitchen and grabbed the bottle of apple cider vinegar I kept in the back of the pantry. Tiffany hated the smell, but it was the best fever breaker I knew. I went back to the room and stripped Maya down to her undershirt. I soaked a pair of her socks in the vinegar solution and pulled them onto her feet. Then I wrung out a washcloth and placed it on her forehead. She flinched at the cold, but then she sighed, a long rattling sigh. I sat in the rocking chair next to her bed, the same chair I had rocked Damon in 30 years ago. I dipped the cloth again and again, wiping her neck, her arms, her face. I hummed a low tune, a gospel song my grandmother used to sing. It was not about religion tonight, it was about survival. Stay with me, Maya, I whispered. You have to fight this baby girl. The blood inside you is Van's blood. It is iron and concrete, it does not break. I spent the next 2 hours fighting the fever. I watched the rise and fall of her chest, praying to a god I had not spoken to in years. Slowly, the heat began to break. Her breathing deepened. Her skin felt a little cooler. She stopped thrashing. She opened her eyes. This time she saw me. Grandpa, she croaked, her voice tiny and rough. I am here, baby. I am right here. Did the monsters go away? She asked. I took her small hand in mine. It was so fragile I was afraid I would crush it. I am chasing them away. Maya, I promised. I'm going to chase every single monster out of this house and I'm never going to let them come back. She squeezed my finger. Grandpa, she whispered, Mommy says I am broken. She says I have bad blood. My heart shattered into 1,000 jagged pieces. You are not broken, I said, my voice fierce. You are perfect. You are the strongest thing in this house and your blood is kings and queens, baby. Do not ever let her tell you different. She closed her eyes and drifted into a natural sleep. The vinegar smell was sharp in the air, but to me it smelled like victory. Then I heard it, the garage door rumbling open, the heavy thud of the door connecting to the kitchen. The monster was home. I stood up. I wanted to go down there and confront her. I wanted to show her the feverish child she had abandoned. But I remembered the plan. I remembered Ray's warning. I needed more than negligence. I needed malice. I moved to the corner of the room into the deep shadows behind the tall wardrobe. I pulled out my phone and hit record. I heard her stumbling up the stairs. She was not trying to be quiet. She was humming a pop song off key and loud. She bumped into the wall. I heard a giggle. The door to Maya's room banged open. Tiffany stood there swaying. She smelled like a distillery. Her hair was a mess. Her lipstick smeared across her cheek. She looked wild and ugly. In the dim light of the street lamp coming through the window, she stared at the bed. She did not check Maya's forehead. She did not check her breathing. She saw the open window. Who opened the window? She slurred. It is freezing in here. She stumbled over to slam it shut. Then she turned to the bed. Maya, she said loudly. Maya, wake up. Maya stirred, whimpering in her sleep. Wake up, you little brat, Tiffany hissed. I tensed, my muscles coiled, ready to spring if she touched her. But I held my ground. The camera was rolling. Tiffany grabbed the bedpost to steady herself. I need a thumbnail for tomorrow, she muttered to herself. Sad mom. Worried mom. She reached into her purse and pulled out her phone. She turned on the flash blinding in the dark room. Maya flinched and cried out, shielding her eyes. Stop it, Tiffany snapped. Look at me. Look sad. Mommy needs you to look sad. Maya began to cry for real, a high-pitched wail of fear and confusion. Oh, shut up, Tiffany yelled. Just shut up. You are always crying. You are always sick. You are so useless. She leaned over the bed, her face twisted into a snarl that looked demonic in the harsh light of her phone flash. You know why I keep you around. She spat at the terrified child. Do you think it is because I love you? Look at you. You are pathetic. You are just a leech. I pressed record harder, my finger turning white. This was it. This was the malice. Maya was sobbing now, rocking back and forth. Mommy, please stop. I am not your mommy. Tiffany laughed a cruel, broken sound. Not really. You are just a job. You are a paycheck. That is all you are. A little gold mine that cries and pisses the bed. She poked Maya hard in the chest. You are my ticket out of here, she said. You and that stupid sickness. As soon as your grandfather kicks the bucket and I get the money, I am going to put you in a home so fast your head will spin. I am going to drop you off and forget you ever existed. Maya screamed. Tiffany raised her hand to slap her. I stepped out of the shadows. Tiffany, I boomed. She spun around so fast she almost fell over. She dropped her phone. She stared at me, her eyes wide with shock and fear. Dad, she stammered. How long have you been there? Long enough, I said, my voice cold as the grave. She looked from me to the phone in my hand. Her drunk brain tried to process the situation. She tried to put the mask back on, but it was too late. It was shattered on the floor. I was just checking on her, she lied, her words slurring. She was having a nightmare. I was trying to wake her up. I walked toward her. She took a step back, hitting the wall. I heard you, Tiffany, I said. I heard every word. She narrowed her eyes. A flash of defiance cut through the alcohol. You heard nothing, old man. She spat. You are deaf and senile. Who is going to believe you? I am the mother. I held up the phone. The little red light was still blinking. The world is going to believe this, I said. Tiffany lunged for me. She was fast for a drunk woman. She tried to grab the phone, her nails aiming for my face. Give it to me, she screamed. Give it to me, you old bastard. I caught her wrist. I did not squeeze hard enough to break it, but hard enough to let her know I could. Get out of this room, I said. She struggled, panting. Her breath smelled of vodka and hate. You think you are so smart, she hissed. You think you can save her. You cannot save her. She is damaged goods, just like her father. She yanked her arm free. She smoothed her dress, trying to regain some shred of dignity. You want the truth, she sneered. You want to know why I hate her so much. Because she is not even worth the effort. She is just a tool to get your money. And you know the funniest part, Luther? She leaned in closer, her face inches from mine. She isn't even Damon's kid. The world stopped. The air left the room. I stared at her. What did you say? I whispered. She smiled a wicked, triumphant smile. You heard me, she said. She is a bastard. Just a little mistake I made with a guy in a bar 7 years ago. Damon is so stupid he never even asked for a test. He just accepted it because he's desperate to be a daddy. She laughed again. So go ahead, Luther. Show him the video. Tell him I am a bad mom. But then you will have to tell him that his little princess is not even a Vance. You will break his heart. You will destroy him. She poked me in the chest. You won't do it. You are too proud. You won't let him know he has been raising another man's trash. She turned and walked out of the room, leaving me standing there frozen in the center of the rug. The door slammed shut. I looked at Maya. She had curled into a ball under the covers, sobbing quietly. I looked at her face, her eyes, her nose. I had always seen Damien in her. I had always seen my wife in her. But was it just because I wanted to? Was she right? Was this little girl who I loved more than life itself a stranger? I felt a pain in my chest that was sharper than any heart attack. Tiffany had dropped the ultimate bomb. She had weaponized the bloodline. I walked over to the bed. I sat down. I pulled the covers back. Maya looked up at me. Her eyes were full of fear. Is she gone? She whispered. She's gone, baby, I said. Are you mad at me? She asked. I shook my head. Tears blurred my vision. No, baby, I am not mad at you. I could never be mad at you. I stroked her hair, but I needed to know if Tiffany was lying. Because if she was telling the truth, it changed everything. It did not change my love for Maya, but it changed the war, it changed the legal battle. If Maya was not Damon's daughter, he had no rights. Tiffany could take her away, she could take her and vanish, and I would never see her again. I needed proof, science, just like with the pills. I saw a hairbrush on the nightstand. It was full of Maya's hair. I needed Damon's DNA. I remembered he kept an old hairbrush in the guest bathroom downstairs, one he used when he came back from the rig before showering. I kissed Maya's forehead. Go to sleep, honey, I said. Grandpa has one more thing to do. I walked out of the room. The hallway was empty. Tiffany had passed out in her room. I could hear the heavy thud of her body hitting the bed. I went downstairs. I went to the bathroom. I found Damon's brush. I pulled a few strands of hair from it. I put them in a Ziploc bag. Then I went back to Maya's room and took hair from her brush. I put that in a separate bag. I went to my study. I labeled the bags. Tomorrow, I thought, tomorrow I find out who you really are, Maya. And no matter what the answer is, Tiffany is going to pay. But if she is lying about this, I'm going to make sure she rots in a cell until the end of time. I sat there in the dark, holding the two bags of hair, feeling the weight of the truth pressing down on me. Bastard, she had said. We will see, Tiffany. We will see who the real bastard is. The sun had not yet beached the horizon when I pulled my truck out of the driveway. In the passenger seat sat two Ziploc bags. One contained strands of hair from my son Damon's old brush. The other contained hair from my granddaughter Maya. These were not just biological samples, they were the keys to my sanity. Tiffany's poisonous words from the night before were still ringing in my ears. She isn't even Damon's kid, just a mistake I made in a bar. I needed to know. If Maya was not advanced, the legal battle I was preparing would be 10 times harder. I drove to a private genetic testing facility in the medical district. I knew the director. I paid 3 times the standard rate for a rush job. 24 hours, I told him. I need to know if they are father and daughter. He looked at my face, saw the desperation etched into my wrinkles, and nodded. He took the bags. I drove back home feeling a strange hollowness in my chest. I wanted Maya to be ours. I wanted that blood connection. But if she wasn't, I knew I would still fight for her. Blood makes you related, but loyalty makes you family. And that little girl had nobody else. When I turned onto my street, I slammed on the brakes. My driveway was blocked. There were vans parked on the lawn, not police vans, news vans, a local channel logo theory painted on the side of a white truck. I parked my truck on the curb and walked up the driveway. The front lawn had been transformed. There were pink balloons tied to the mailbox. A large banner hung over the porch that read Hope for Maya, community fundraiser. I walked into the house and the noise hit me. The living room was full of people, strangers. There were lights set up on tripods. A cameraman was adjusting a lens. A reporter with perfect hair was checking her microphone. And there, in the center of it all, was Tiffany. She was wearing white, a modest white dress that made her look angelic. She had done her makeup to look pale and exhausted, the brave, suffering mother. But it was what was next to her that made my fists clench. Maya was in a wheelchair. My granddaughter could walk. She was weak from the drugs, yes, but she did not need a wheelchair. It was a prop, a theater prop designed to elicit maximum sympathy and maximum donations. Maya was slumped in the seat, her head lolling to the side. She looked like a doll that had been broken and glued back together wrong. I started to push through the crowd, but a production assistant with a clipboard stopped me. Sir, we are about to go live. You need to stay back. I swatted his hand away. I am the owner of this house, I growled. Get out of my way. I stopped at the edge of the living room just as the red light on the camera turned on. We are live with Tiffany Vance, the reporter said, her voice dropping to a somber, serious tone. A mother fighting a mysterious genetic battle to save her daughter. Tiffany, tell us how Maya is doing today. Tiffany sniffled. She reached out and stroked Maya's hair. It has been a hard morning, she whispered, looking directly into the lens. The tremors are getting worse. We are running out of time. We need this specialized treatment in Switzerland, but the costs are astronomical. The reporter nodded sympathetically. And you have had to do this largely alone, is that correct, Tiffany? Sighed, casting a quick, meaningful glance toward the hallway where I was standing. My husband is working offshore to pay the bills, and his family. Well, let us just say, not everyone understands the severity of mental and physical illness. It has been a lonely road. She was painting me as the villain on live television without even saying my name. It was brilliant. It was evil. Maya stirred in the wheelchair. She let out a small whimper. Mommy, she mumbled, I'm thirsty. Tiffany's smile tightened. She reached down into her bag and pulled out the blue bottle. She needs her medicine, Tiffany told the camera. It is the only thing that calms the seizures, even though it is expensive. I'm sure she never misses a dose. She shook 2 pills into her hand, then she shook 2 more. 4 pills. That was double the dose I had seen her give before. She was trying to sedate the child right there on camera to show the world how sick she was, to make her pass out live on air. My vision blurred with red rage. If Maya took 4 of those antipsychotics in her weakened state, she might never wake up. I did not think about the plan. I did not think about the long game. I just saw my granddaughter in danger. I stepped forward. I grabbed a silver tray of appetizers from a nearby table. Oh, let me help you with that, I boomed, my voice feigning a senile clumsiness. I lunged forward, pretending to trip over the rug. I slammed the silver tray hard onto the small table next to Tiffany, right where she had set a glass of water. The crash was deafening. The water glass shattered. The tray hit Tiffany's arm. The blue pills in her hand went flying, scattering across the hardwood floor like toxic confetti. You clumsy old fool, Tiffany, he shrieked. The mask slipped. It was instantaneous. For 1 second, the angelic mother vanished, and the vicious, hateful woman I knew appeared, her face twisted into a snarl of pure rage. She raised her hand as if to strike me, forgetting the camera, forgetting the reporter, forgetting the narrative. Then she froze. She realized the red light was still on. She realized the reporter was staring at her with wide eyes. I stood up straight, brushing crumbs off my shirt. "I am so sorry," I said, my voice loud and clear. "My hands just aren't what they used to be. But you know, Tiffany, maybe it is a sign. Those pills look awfully strong for a little girl. Maybe we should let the doctor check them before we give her more." Tiffany scrambled to cover her mistake. She dropped to her knees, frantically trying to pick up the blue pills from the rug. "It is okay, Dad," she said, her voice shaking with suppressed fury. "It was an accident. I'm just so stressed." She looked up at the camera, tears instantly springing to her eyes. "See, this is what I deal with. He is confused. He does not mean to be dangerous, but he is." The reporter looked from me to Tiffany. The air in the room was thick with tension. The perfect image had been cracked. It wasn't destroyed, but it was cracked. "Cut," the reporter said to the cameraman. "Let us take five." "But Tiffany, maybe you should clean that up." The crew stepped back. Tiffany stood up, clutching the handful of pills. She leaned in close to me, so close I could smell the fear beneath her perfume. "You will pay for this," she hissed, her voice a low, venomous whisper. "I am going to have you locked up by the end of the week, and when I do, I am going to double her dose just to spite you." She turned and marched Maya's wheelchair into the kitchen, away from the cameras. I stood there, my heart hammering. I had bought Maya a reprieve from that overdose, but I had escalated the timeline. Tiffany was cornered, and a cornered animal bites. I retreated to my study. I needed to regroup. I needed to check on the legal paperwork Ray was filing. I sat down at my desk and opened my laptop. My hands were shaking. I checked my email. There was a new message in my inbox. Sender Gentech Labs. Subject Rush. Result Paternity Analysis. Vans. I stared at the subject line. The room seemed to shrink. This was it. This was the moment that would define the rest of my life. Was I fighting for my blood, or was I fighting for a stranger? If Tiffany had told the truth last night, if Maya was another man's child, then Damon had no legal claim. I had no legal claim. We were just bystanders in a tragedy. I clicked the email. The PDF opened. I scrolled past the technical jargon, past the genetic markers and the alleles. I looked for the bottom line, the conclusion: probability of paternity 99.998%. The conclusion: Damon Vance is the biological father of Maya Vance. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. I slumped back in my chair, tears stinging my eyes. She lied. Tiffany had lied to my face. She had told me Maya was a bastard just to hurt me, just to break my spirit, just to make me to hesitate. She was willing to brand her own child illegitimate, to erase her husband's legacy, just to win a psychological battle with an old man. It was pure evil. It was a level of malice I had never encountered, not even in the cutthroat world of construction. But then a cold realization washed over me. If Maya was Damon's daughter and Tiffany knew it, then she wasn't just poisoning a child she considered a mistake. She was poisoning her own flesh and blood. She was poisoning the child she made with her husband. Or was she? I looked at the report again. It confirmed Damon was the father. It said nothing about the mother. We hadn't tested Tiffany, but why would she lie about the affair? Why say she was a bastard to isolate Damon? To make sure that if I ever told him the truth about the poisoning, she could drop the not your daughter bomb and make him walk away. It was a failsafe, a nuclear option she kept in her pocket. But now I had the codes. Maya was a Vance. She was my blood. She was my heir, and nobody was going to hurt her again. I printed the report. I put it in the folder with the toxicology results and the video of the affair. The evidence was mounting, but I needed one more thing. I needed to break Damon's spell. I needed him to see the monster not with my eyes, but with his own. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Ray. "Check your email again. I found the real estate listing. She put the house on a pocket listing this morning. Cash offers only. Quick close. She is selling it out from under you, Luther." I looked at the calendar. It was Wednesday. She wanted to close by Friday. She was selling my house. She was poisoning my granddaughter. She was cheating on my son. I picked up the phone. I dialed a number I hadn't called in years. It was my old foreman, Big Mike. He ran a crew of guys who could strip a house to the studs in 4 hours. "Mike," I said, "I need a favor." I need you to bring the boys. We are going to do some renovations. If Tiffany wanted to sell the house, I was going to make sure there was nothing left to sell. But first, I had to make the call I had been dreading. I had to call Damon, and this time I wasn't going to ask him to come home. I was going to trick him. Because sometimes, to save a man, you have to break his heart first. I sat in my study with the phone in my hand and a heaviness in my chest that had nothing to do with my heart and everything to do with the lie I was about to tell. It was a sin. I knew it. But I also knew that if I told Damon the truth over the phone, if I told him his wife was a monster and his daughter was being poisoned, he would call Tiffany first. He would ask her. She would spin a web of lies so thick he would never come home. He would stay on that rig to pay for the treatment she claimed Maya needed. So I did the only thing I could. I dialed his number. When he answered, the background noise of the drilling machinery was deafening. Damon, I rasped, making my voice sound weak and breathless. It is my heart, son. The doctors say it is bad. I do not think I have much time. There was a silence on the line. Then the sound of metal clanging as he dropped something. Dad, he shouted. Dad, hold on. I am coming. I am catching the next chopper. Do not you dare die on me. Uh, I hung up. I hated myself for it. I hated hearing the panic in his voice. But I had to get him in the room. I had to get him within arm's reach of the truth. It took 14 hours for him to get home. 14 hours where Tiffany paced the house like a caged tiger. She knew he was coming. I had accidentally left the hospital brochure on the kitchen counter so she would think I really was sick. She spent the day scrubbing the house, hiding the pills, and coaching Maya. When the front door finally burst open, it was raining. Damon stood there soaked to the bone, his duffel bag sliding off his shoulder. He looked older. His face was lined with grease and exhaustion. His eyes were wild with fear. Dad, he yelled. Where is he? But he didn't get to me first. Tiffany did. She flew down the stairs in a white silk robe, her hair perfectly messy, tears already streaming down her face. She threw herself into his arms, sobbing so hard her whole body shook. It was a masterclass in manipulation. Oh, baby, she wailed. Oh, thank God you are home. It has been a nightmare. He has lost his mind, Damon. He has completely lost his mind. Damon held her, looking confused. Who? Dad. Is he okay? I thought he was dying. Tiffany pulled back, looking up at him with wide, terrified eyes. He is not dying, baby. He is dangerous. He called you because he is delusional. He has been attacking me. He has been scaring Maya. He thinks there are conspiracies everywhere. He thinks I am trying to hurt him. She rolled up her sleeve. There was a fresh bruise on her forearm. I watched. From the top of the stairs, hidden in the shadows, I knew exactly where that bruise came from. She had slammed her arm against the doorframe an hour ago. I heard the thud. Look what he did to me when I tried to give him his blood pressure medicine. She lied, her voice trembling. He grabbed me. He called me a witch. I have been so scared, Damon. I locked myself in a room. I didn't want to tell you while you were working because I know how stressed that you are. Damon touched the bruise. His jaw tightened. The fear in his eyes turned to anger. He hit you. He asked, his voice low. He does not know what he is doing, Tiffany said, burying her face in his chest. It is the dementia. It has gotten so aggressive. He needs help, Damon. We have to put him somewhere safe. For Maya's sake. She played the Maya card. It was the ace up her sleeve. Where is he? Damon growled. He is in his study, she whispered. Be careful. He might have a weapon. He has been talking about guns all week. Damon pushed past her. He stomped up the stairs, his heavy work boots thudding against the wood. I retreated into my study and sat behind my desk. I did not turn on the lights. I wanted him to see my face clearly in the glow of the computer monitors. The door flew open. It hit the wall with a crack. Damon stood there, filling the frame. He was a big man built like me in my prime, but right now he looked small. He looked like a man who was drowning and didn't know which way was up. Dad, he barked. I looked at him. I did not stand up. I did not look sick. I sat straight, my hands folded on the desk. Hello, son, I said calmly. Damon blinked. He was expecting a frail, dying old man or a raving lunatic. He found neither, but the seed Tiffany had planted was deep. What the hell is going on? He shouted, stepping into the room. You call me, saying you are dying. I fly halfway across the world, and I come home to find my wife crying and bruised. Did you touch her? I did not touch her, Damon, I said. Do not lie to me, he yelled, slamming his hand on my desk. I saw the marks. I know you never liked her, Dad. I know you think she is not good enough for us, but I never thought you would get violent. She is the mother of your grandchild. She is a liar, Damon, I said, and she is dangerous. Stop it, he roared. Just stop it. I am sick of this. I am sick of being the referee. I work myself to death to provide for this family, and I come home to this. He leaned over the desk, his face inches from mine. I could smell the steel airplane air and the sweat on him. She is a saint, Dad. Do you hear me? She takes care of this house. She takes care of a sick child 24 hours a day while I am gone. She puts up with your moods. She puts up with your judgment. And she never complains. She is a living saint for putting up with you. A saint. The word hung in the air. I thought of the pills. I thought of the dead ficus tree. I thought of Maya shivering in a fever while Tiffany drank cocktails. You think she is a saint? I asked softly. I know she is, he spat, and you are going to apologize to her. And then we are going to talk about living arrangements. Because she is right. You cannot stay here if you are going to be like this. You are old, Dad. You are losing your grip. Leave my wife alone. He turned to leave. He was done. He had made his choice. He had chosen the wife he thought he knew over the father who raised him. Damon, I said. My voice was not loud, but it stopped him. Before you walk out that door, you need to see something. I do not want to see any of your crazy conspiracy charts, he said without turning around. It is not a chart, I said. It is a movie. Starring your saint? Damon stopped. The tension in his shoulders was palpable. He turned around slowly. What are you talking about? I spun the laptop around. The screen was black. I had the video queued up. The one from the penthouse. The one Ray had enhanced so the audio was crystal clear. Just watch, I said, and if after you watch this you still want to kick me out, I will pack my bags and walk to the asylum myself. Damon looked at the laptop. He looked at me. He looked like he wanted to punch the screen. But curiosity is a powerful thing. He walked back to the desk. He looked down. I pressed play. The video started. It was clear. High definition. It showed the interior of a luxury apartment, and then it showed Tiffany. She wasn't wearing the modest clothes she wore around Damon. She was wearing something slinky and red, and she wasn't alone. A Chad walked into the frame. He was shirtless. He walked up to Tiffany and kissed her. It wasn't a friendly kiss. It was deep, hungry, familiar. Damon let out a sound like he had been punched in the gut. He gripped the edge of the desk so hard the wood creaked. On the screen, Tiffany laughed. She wrapped her legs around Chad's waist. Oh, baby, she said, her voice clear and crisp. You have no idea how boring it is playing nursemaid. I miss this. I miss a real man. Damon's face went white, then it went red. He was shaking. On the video, Chad slapped her rear. So when does the hubby get back? Tiffany rolled her eyes on screen. Next week, but do not worry. He is so dumb. He thinks I am at therapy right now. He sends money every time I cry about Maya. He is just an ATM machine, Chad. That is all he is. I paused the video. The silence in the room was absolute. It was the silence of a life breaking into pieces. Damon stood there. He was frozen. His mouth was open, but no sound came out. He looked like a little boy who had just watched his dog get hit by a car. He sends money, Damon whispered. ATM machine. I stood up and walked around the desk. I put my hand on his shoulder. He flinched, but he didn't pull away. She bought him a Range Rover, Damon, I said gently. With the money you sent for Maya's treatment. With the donations from strangers. Damon looked at me. His eyes were full of tears. Tears of rage, tears of humiliation. She said she was at therapy, he choked out. She said she was suffering. She is suffering, I said. She is suffering from greed. Damon let out a roar. It was a primal sound. He grabbed the laptop and raised it over his head, ready to smash it. No, I said, sharply catching his arm. That is evidence. We need that. Damon lowered the laptop. He was breathing hard, panting like an animal in a trap. Where is she? He growled. She is downstairs, I said, waiting for you to kick me out. Damon turned. He didn't walk. He charged. He stormed out of the study and down the hallway. I followed him, my heart pounding, and I knew this was going to be ugly. Tiffany was waiting at the bottom of the stairs. She had refreshed her tears. She looked up, expecting to see a defeated old man and a supportive husband. Did you tell him, baby? She sobbed. Is he going to leave? Damon stopped at the top of the stairs. He looked down at her, the woman he had worshipped, the woman he had defended against his own father. You, he shouted. His voice shook the walls. Tiffany's face changed. She saw the look in his eyes. It wasn't love. It was murder. Damon, she stammered, stepping back. What is wrong? You are a liar, he screamed, starting down the stairs. You are a cheating, lying thief. I saw him. I saw you and that musclehead. Tiffany froze. Her eyes darted to me, standing behind Damon. She realized instantly what had happened. I had shown him the proof. She didn't try to deny it. She didn't try to apologize. Her survival instinct kicked in. She realized she had lost control of Damon. She realized her ATM machine was broken. She screamed. It wasn't a scream of fear. It was a scream to alert the neighbors. Help! She shrieked, throwing herself onto the floor. Help me! He is killing me! She clawed at her own face. She ripped her silk robe. She smashed a vase onto the floor and rolled. In the glass, Damon stopped halfway down the stairs, stunned. What are you doing? Tiffany grabbed her phone from her pocket. She dialed three numbers. 911. She screamed into the phone, her voice hysterical. I need help. My husband and his father are attacking me. They have guns. Please hurry. They are going to kill me. She looked up at us. The tears were real now, but the smile behind them was pure ice. You want to play games, Luther? She hissed, covering the mouthpiece. Let us see who the police believe. A crying mother or two, angry black men standing over her. Sirens wailed in the distance. They were close, too close. She had called them before Damon even came upstairs. She had set the trap. Run, I told Damon, get out the back. But he couldn't move. He was staring at the woman he loved, watching her destroy him. With a single phone call, the front door burst open. Blue lights flooded the hallway. Hands in the air, a voice shouted. Police, Tiffany pointed at me. He has a gun, she lied. Shoot him. I looked at the officers. Their hands were on their holsters. Their eyes were wide. And in that moment, I knew that the truth didn't matter. The video didn't matter. We were in the middle of a nightmare. And the monster was winning. The world turned into a blur of red and blue strobing lights the moment those officers kicked in my front door. I had spent 40 years building a reputation in the city. I was Luther Vance. I was the man who poured the concrete for the precinct these boys worked out of. But in that hallway, amidst the shattered glass of the vase Tiffany had thrown and the screaming of a woman who knew exactly how to play the victim, I was just another large, angry black man standing over a petite, crying white woman. The math was simple and the result was inevitable. Get on the ground. The first officer screamed, his hand already on his weapon. He was young, terrified, and dangerous. I saw his eyes dart from me to Damon, then fix on me. I was the threat. I was the monster. I raised my hand slowly. I am the homeowner, I said, my voice calm despite the hurricane in my chest. This woman is lying. He has a gun, and Tiffany shrieked from the floor. She was clutching her face where fresh blood was welling up from scratches she had inflicted on herself just seconds ago. He said he was going to kill us all. He hit me. Look what he did to me. That was all they needed to hear. I was on the floor before I could finish my next sentence. A knee pressed into my back, grinding my spine against the hardwood I had installed myself. The cold steel of handcuffs bit into my wrists, ratcheting tight enough to cut off the circulation. I heard Damon shouting, trying to explain, trying to tell them about the video, about the affair, about the lies. Stop, Damon yelled. You don't understand. She's lying. He didn't touch her. But they weren't listening to him. One officer was helping Tiffany up, treating her like a piece of fragile porcelain. She leaned into him, sobbing, pointing a shaking finger at me. Get him out of here, she wailed. Please just get him away from my daughter. They dragged me up. My bad knee buckled, but they didn't care. They marched me out of my own house. I looked back and saw Maya standing at the top of the stairs. She was clutching the banister, her eyes wide with terror. She wasn't looking at the police. She was looking at me, her protector, her grandfather, and I was being hauled away like trash. Don't worry, baby. I tried to call out, Grandpa will come back. Shut your mouth, the officer hissed, shoving me through the doorway. The walk to the squad car was the longest walk of my life. My neighbors, the people I had barbecued with, the people whose driveways I had plowed in the winter, were standing on their porches. They weren't looking at me with sympathy, they were looking at me with fear. Tiffany's campaign of whispers had worked. They didn't see Luther the neighbor, they saw the violent, senile old man Tiffany had warned them about. I was shoved into the back of the cruiser. The hard plastic seat smelled of vomit and disinfectant. I watched through the wire mesh as the officers took statements. I saw Tiffany standing in the doorway, wrapped in a blanket the paramedics had given her. And then she did it. She looked right at the car. She knew I was watching. She waited until the officers turned their heads and then she smiled. It wasn't a big smile, just a small, quick lifting of the corners of her mouth, a little wave of her fingers, a victory lap. She had won. She had taken my son, my house, and my freedom in one night. I spent the next 12 hours in a holding cell that smelled like despair. I sat on a metal bench and stared at the graffiti scratched into the wall. I didn't sleep. I didn't eat the sandwich they threw at me. I just sat there and let the rage crystallize. It hardened in my gut, turning from a hot fire into cold, heavy iron. My lawyer, Marcus Thorne, arrived at dawn. He was the best defense attorney money could buy, a man who played golf with judges and drank scotch with senators. He walked into the interrogation room looking like he owned the building. We have a problem, Luther, he said, not wasting time with pleasantries. Get me out of here, Marcus, I said. I have to go back. She is poisoning the girl. Marcus sighed, opening his briefcase. You are not going back, Luther. Not today. And probably not for a long time. He slid a piece of paper across the table. It was a temporary restraining order. The judge signed this an hour ago, Marcus said. Emergency order of protection. You are barred from coming within 100 yards of the residence, Tiffany Vance, Damon Vance, or Maya Vance. I stared at the paper. Damon, even Damon, she filed it on behalf of the entire household, Marcus explained. She claims Damon is a victim of your coercion too. And with the bruising on her face and the testimony of the officers who said you were belligerent and resisting it, the judge didn't hesitate. But it is a lie. I slammed my fist on the table. She scratched herself. I have video proof of her affair. I have toxicology reports. Save it for the hearing, Marcus said sharply. Right now, you are a man charged with domestic battery and resisting arrest. If you go near that house, you go to prison. Real prison, not this holding cell. Do you understand me? I understood. The system was a machine and Tiffany had poured sand in the gears. Marcus got me released on bail by noon. I walked out of the station into the blinding sunlight, a free man on paper, but a prisoner in reality. I had the clothes on my back, my wallet, and a phone with a cracked screen. My truck was impounded. My house was a fortress I couldn't breach. I took a taxi to the Four Seasons. I didn't want a motel. I wanted a war room. I booked a suite on the 20th floor. When I closed the door behind me, the silence was deafening. I walked to the window and looked out over the city I had helped build. I saw the steel skeleton of skyscrapers, the concrete veins of the highways. I had played by the rules my whole life. I paid my taxes. I went to church. I raised my son to be a gentleman. I trusted the law. And what did it get me? It got me kicked out of my own home by a grieter with a sob story. It left my granddaughter at the mercy of a woman who was slowly killing her. It left my son blinded and broken. I poured myself a glass of water from the minibar. My hand was shaking, not from fear, from realization. I had been fighting Tiffany like a gentleman. I had been collecting evidence, hiring lawyers, waiting for court dates. I thought the truth was a shield. But Tiffany wasn't fighting a legal battle. She was fighting a street war. She didn't care about the truth. She cared about winning. She used my race, my age, and my gender against me. She used the police as her personal security guards. If I continued to play by the rules, Maya would be dead before I ever got a court date. The law was too slow. The law was blind. I finished the water and set the glass down. The shaking in my hand stopped. I looked at my reflection in the mirror. I saw an old man with grey hair and tired eyes. But beneath that, I saw the man I used to be. The man who walked picket lines in the 80s when the mob tried to break our union. The man who stood toe to toe with corrupt foremen and didn't blink. I had buried that man a long time ago. I thought I didn't need him anymore. I thought money and respectability were enough. I was wrong. To kill a monster, you have to become a monster. You have to go into the dark where they live. You have to use teeth and claws. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. I scrolled past the lawyers, past the doctors, past the accountants. I went deep into the contacts to numbers I hadn't dialed in 20 years. Numbers that belonged to men who didn't have offices or websites, men who operated in the grey spaces between the law and the necessary. I stopped at a name, Bishop. He was a man who used to run security for my sites back in the wild days. He wasn't a thug, he was a cleaner. A man who specialized in problems that the police couldn't or wouldn't solve. He owed me a life debt from an incident in 92 involving a collapsed trench and a shovel. I pressed call. It rang twice. Luther, a voice rasped. It sounded like gravel crunching under tires. I saw you on the news. You look like you are having a bad week. You could say that, Bishop, I said. I need a favor, I continued, my voice devoid of emotion. I need a crew, not a construction crew. I need ghosts. I need guys who can walk through walls and leave no footprints. There was a pause on the other end. What is the job, Luther? I looked out the window at the city stretching out before me. Somewhere out there in my house, Tiffany was probably popping champagne. She was probably counting her money. She was probably feeding my granddaughter another poison pill. The job is a demolition, I said. But we are not knocking down a building. We are dismantling a life. I need surveillance on a level that makes the CIA look like amateurs. I need her bank accounts frozen, but not by the bank. I need her car to stop working. I need the power to go out. I need her to feel like the walls are closing in. I paused. And Bishop, I need you to find Chad, the boyfriend. I want to have a conversation with him. A very private conversation. Bishop chuckled. A low, dark sound. We are going old school, huh? Luther. Jungle law. Jungle law, I confirmed. I will have the boys ready in an hour, Bishop said. Where do we meet? Room 2045, Four Seasons, I said. Bring the equipment. We are going to play big. I hung up the phone. I felt a strange calm settle over me. The fear was gone. The hesitation was gone. Tiffany wanted my house. She wanted my money. She wanted to play the victim. Fine, she was about to find out what happens when you corner a man who built his empire on steel and grit. She thought she had won because she had the law on her side, but tonight the law didn't apply. Tonight the cleanup crew was coming, and we weren't going to leave a single speck of dust behind. And I sat in the high back chair of the hotel suite, the city lights reflecting off the glass like distant fires. Bishop stood by the window, a silent shadow in a dark suit, holding a tablet that controlled the web of surveillance we had spun around my former life. It was time to pull the plug, not the life support, but the money support. The invisible lifeline that had kept my son feeling like a king and his wife living like a queen. For 10 years, Damon walked around with his chest puffed out, thinking he was a top tier engineer earning top tier money. He didn't know the truth. He didn't know that the oil services company he worked for was a subsidiary of a holdings group I owned a 40% stake in. He didn't know that his quarterly performance bonuses, the ones that paid for Tiffany's trips and the German cars, were not based on his drilling metrics. They were transfers I authorized, allowances disguised as payroll. I had done it to give him dignity. I had done it so he wouldn't feel like he was living in his father's shadow. But dignity is a luxury for honest men, and right now Damon was an accomplice to a monster. I picked up the phone and dialed the private number for the payroll department of the holding company. This is Luther Vance, I said, my voice flat. Authorization code 79 Alpha Zulu. There was a pause, then a respectful voice. Yes, Mr. Vance. How can we help you terminate the supplemental compensation package for employee ID 4459 Damon Vance, effective immediately, retroactive to the first of the month? Claw back any pending transfers. But, sir, the voice hesitated. That constitutes 70% of his take home pay. Without that, do it, I interrupted, and freeze the corporate expense account issued to his spouse, flag it for fraud. I hung up. It was done. The tap was dry. Now we just had to wait for the thirst to set in. It didn't take long. Bishop tapped the tablet screen and cast the image onto the large television on the wall. Showtime, Bishop rumbled. The screen showed the reception desk of the Golden Lotus, the most expensive day spa in the city. Tiffany was there. She was wearing a plush white robe, her hair wrapped in a towel, looking relaxed and smug. She had just spent 4 hours getting scrubbed, massaged, and polished. She handed the receptionist her platinum card, the one linked to Damon's corporate account, with a dismissive wave of her hand. I watched her face, that arrogant tilt of the chin, the way she didn't even look at the girl behind the counter. The receptionist swiped the card. She frowned. She swiped it again. She typed something into her computer. I leaned forward. I am sorry, Mrs. Vance, the receptionist said, her voice audible through the high-quality security feed Bishop had hacked into. This card has been declined. Tiffany laughed, a sharp, incredulous bark. Do not be ridiculous. Run it again. It is a platinum corporate card. It has no limit. I am getting a code here, ma'am, the girl said, losing her smile. It says, refer to issuer. Fraud alert. Fraud, Tiffany screeched. She whipped out another card, a personal visa. Try this one. Declined. She pulled out a MasterCard. Declined. I had been thorough. I had Ray flag every joint account for suspicious activity related to the police investigation. The line behind Tiffany was getting long. Two women in expensive coats were whispering and looking at her. Tiffany's face turned a blotchy red. The mask of the wealthy socialite was cracking, revealing the desperate grifter underneath. I must have forgotten to unlock them for travel. Tiffany stammered, lying through her teeth. I am not traveling, but sometimes the bank, you know how it is. She dug into her purse for cash. She pulled out a 20 and a few ones. The bill was $600. I need to make a call, she hissed. She pulled out her phone and dialed Damon. I watched on the split screen as she paced the lobby. Damon, pick up, she yelled into her voicemail. The cards are not working. You need to fix this. I am stranded at the spa. It is humiliating. She didn't know that Damon couldn't fix it. Damon was currently staring at an email from HR telling him his pay was being restructured due to budget cuts. He was about to find out exactly how much his lifestyle actually cost. While Tiffany was melting down in the lobby, her phone buzzed with an incoming call. It wasn't Damon, it was Chad. She answered, turning her back to the receptionist. What, she snapped. I am having a crisis here, Chad. You are having a crisis. Chad's voice came through the speaker loud and panicked. I am at the gym. A tow truck just hooked the Range Rover. They are taking a tip. What? Tiffany screamed, causing the entire spa lobby to go silent. That is my car. I bought it. You listed. Chad yelled back. In Damon's name, the repo guy says the lease was cancelled for violation of contract terms, something about unauthorized drivers and missed payments. Do something, I smiled. I hadn't just cancelled the payments, I had bought the leasing paper from the dealership that morning through a shell company. I was the repo man. They are driving away with it, Chad shouted. I have my protein powder in there. Tiffany hung up. She looked around the lobby. The women were staring. The receptionist was waiting. The manager was walking over with a look that said, Get out. She threw the $20 on the counter. I will come back and pay the rest, she muttered. She ran out the door, still in the spa robe, leaving her designer clothes in the locker room. Because she couldn't pay the fee to get the key back, I took a sip of my water. Strike one, I said. By the time Tiffany got back to the house, taking a bus because her Uber app was linked to the dead card, she was in a state of feral panic. I watched her storm into the house on the kitchen camera. She was shivering still in the robe, her hair a mess. She went straight to the liquor cabinet. She poured a glass of vodka and downed it. Then she started pacing. She needed money. She needed it now. She had the forger to pay. She had the lawyer to pay. And now she had to get the car back for her boy toy. Her eyes landed on the living room. My house was filled with things I had collected over a lifetime, paintings, vases, sculptures. Tiffany had always hated them, calling them dusty junk, but she knew what they were worth, or she thought she did. She walked over to the mantel. There sat a Ming vase. It was blue and white, delicate ancient. I had bought it at an auction in '99 for $12,000. She grabbed it. I am selling it all, she muttered to the empty room. All of his stupid trash. She took photos of the vase. Then she moved to the oil painting above the sofa, a landscape by a famous Hudson River School artist, valued at 40,000. She ripped it off the wall. She spent the next hour tearing through the house like a locust. She piled everything in the foyer. The silver candlesticks, the antique clock, the ivory chess set. Then she made a call. Tony, she said into the phone. Yeah, it is Tiffany. I have some estate items, high end. No, I need cash today. Bring the truck. Tony was a fence, a guy who bought stolen goods for pennies on the dollar. I knew him. He was a rat, but he paid cash. He arrived an hour later in a battered van. He walked into my foyer and whistled. Nice haul, Tiff, he said, picking up the vase. The old man kicked the bucket. He is gone, she said dismissively. Just give me a price. Tony examined the vase. He tapped it. He frowned. He took out a jeweler's loupe and looked at the mark on the bottom. Then he laughed. He put the vase down hard. What is this a joke? Tony sneered. What do you mean? Tiffany demanded. That is a Ming. It is worth 10 grand easy. It is a Pier 1 import, Tony said. Look at the stamp. Made in Taiwan. It is a replica. A cheap one worth maybe 20 bucks if you find a sucker. Tiffany went pale. No, that is impossible. He always bragged about it. Tony moved to the painting. He licked his thumb and rubbed the corner of the canvas. The paint smeared. Inkjet print, Tony said, wiping his thumb on his pants. Textured gel coating to make it look like brush strokes. You can buy these at the mall for $50. He looked at the pile. The silver candlesticks, plated nickel. The ivory chest set resin. It is all fake, Tiff, Tony said, shaking his head. It is all junk. The old man played you. He must have swapped the real stuff out years ago. Or maybe he never had it. Maybe he was just a broke old man pretending to be rich. Get out, Tiffany whispered. Tony shrugged. Call me if you find anything real. Like jewelry or cash. He left. Tiffany stood in the middle of the foyer, surrounded by the pile of worthless fakes. She screamed. It was a long, jagged sound of pure frustration. She kicked the fake Ming vase, and it shattered into thick industrial ceramic shards. I chuckled in the hotel room. I had moved the real collection to a storage vault 5 years ago when Maya started walking. I didn't want a toddler breaking history. I replaced them with high quality replicas I commissioned for aesthetic purposes. I never told anyone, not even Damon. Paranoia pays off, I told Bishop. On the screen, Tiffany was breathing hard. Her eyes were darting around the room. She was desperate. She was cornered. And when a rat is cornered, it goes for the cheese. She looked up. She looked directly at the ceiling toward the master bedroom, toward the closet. The safe, I had a wall safe in the back of the walk-in closet. It was where I kept the deeds, the birth certificates, and the emergency cash app. Or at least that is what I told Damon. Tiffany ran up the stairs. I switched the camera view. She burst into the closet and tore the clothes off the rack, exposing the steel door of the safe. She tried the combination. Birthdays, anniversaries, nothing worked. She ran out and came back with a hammer and a pry bar from my own toolbox. She attacked the safe with a frenzy. She pounded on the keypad. She jammed the pry bar into the crack. She was sweating, grunting, swinging the hammer like a madwoman. It took her 30 minutes to realize she couldn't break into a Titan steel safe with a hammer. She stopped panting. She dropped the tools. Then she went to her nightstand and pulled out a small black device, an electronic lockpick. I raised an eyebrow. She came prepared. She attached the device to the keypad. It cycled through numbers. Beep, 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 click. The light turned green. She yanked the handle. The heavy door swung open. Tiffany's eyes lit up. She reached inside, expecting stacks of cash, expecting the deed to the house, expecting salvation. She pulled her hand out. It was empty. The safe was completely empty, except for one thing, a single piece of white paper taped to the back wall of the metal box. Tiffany frowned. She reached in and ripped the paper down. She unfolded it. I zoomed in with the camera. I wanted to see her face when she read it. I had written the note myself 3 days ago before I left for the hotel. I knew she would end up here. It was the only road left. She read the note. Her eyes went wide, her mouth opened, the color drained from her face, leaving her looking like a wax statue. She dropped the paper as if it burned her fingers. She spun around, looking at the corners of the room, looking at the ceiling, looking for the eyes. She suddenly felt burning into her skin. She screamed, "Where are you?" On the floor, the note lay face up. In bold black marker, it read, "I am watching you, and I know what you did to Maya. Run." I leaned into the microphone on my control panel. I pressed the button that linked to the hidden speakers I had installed in the vents. "It is too late to run, Tiffany," I said, my voice booming through the house like the voice of God. She shrieked and fell backward, scrambling away from the closet crab walking across the floor. "Who is that?" she screamed. "Damon. Damon isn't going to save you," I said. "Look out the window." She scrambled to the window and looked down. Bishop's men were there, two black SUVs parked across the street, men in suits standing by the doors, watching, waiting. "You are in my prison now," I said, and then I cut the power to the house. The video feeder went black for a second before the cameras switched to night vision. Tiffany was in the dark, alone, broke, and terrified. It was time for the final act. I sat in the darkness of the hotel room watching the monitors glow with the wreckage of my son's life. The power was still out at the house, but the night vision cameras painted everything in a ghostly green light. Tiffany was upstairs, barricaded in the bedroom, terrified of the voice she had heard in the vents. But downstairs, Damon was facing a different kind of terror. The terror of a man who reaches into his pocket and finds nothing but lint. He was sitting at the kitchen table, illuminated by the flashlight on his phone. His laptop was open in front of him, tethered to his mobile hotspot because I had cut the Wi-Fi along with the power. I watched his face contort in confusion, then a disbelief, then panic. He was trying to buy a plane ticket back to the rig, trying to escape the madness of his home, but the screen kept flashing the same red error message. Transaction declined, insufficient funds. He frowned and dialed his bank. I could hear his side of the conversation clearly through the audio feed. "What do you mean zero?" he whispered, his voice trembling. "I just got my quarterly bonus. That is $40,000. It was deposited on the first." He listened for a moment and then the phone slipped from his hand and clattered onto the table. He looked like he had been shot. "Reversal," he muttered to himself. "Payroll error." He did not understand. He still thought it was a mistake. He picked up the phone again and dialed it, the HR department of the drilling company. It was late, but they had a 24-hour line for field engineers. "This is Damon Vance," he said, his voice rising with desperation. "Employee ID 459. My paycheck was reversed. I need that money released. My family is in a crisis." I watched him listen. I saw the blood drain from his face until he looked like a ghost in the green light of the camera. "Supplemental gift," he repeated slowly. "My father." He hung up the phone. He sat there in the dark kitchen for a long time, staring at the wall. The truth was settling in like concrete, hardening around his feet. He had never been the breadwinner. He had never been the big man providing for his high maintenance wife. I had been carrying him. I had been paying for the German cars, the designer clothes, the private doctors. I had done it to protect his pride, but in doing so, I had fed the monster that was eating him alive. Without my money, he was nothing. He was just a guy with a hard job and an empty bank account. And if Tiffany lied about the money being his, what else had she lied about? The seed of doubt I had planted with the video of Chad finally cracked open the shell of his denial. He stood up. He didn't look like the angry man who had stormed into my study yesterday. He looked like a man waking up from a coma. He walked to the stairs. He didn't go up to comfort his wife. He stopped at the landing where Tiffany had dropped her purse in her panic earlier that evening. It was a Birkin bag, costing more than my first truck, lying on its side, spilling its contents onto the rug. Damon knelt down. He wasn't looking for money. He was looking for answers. He sifted through the makeup, the receipts from luxury stores. He couldn't afford the business cards of divorce lawyers. Then his hand stopped. He pulled out a small orange prescription bottle. It wasn't the blue bottle I had found. It was different. The label had been peeled off, leaving only sticky residue. He held it up to the flashlight. He shook it. The pills inside rattled. I leaned closer to my monitor. Open it, Damon, I whispered. Look at it. He unscrewed the cap. He poured a few pills into his palm. They were white, small, and round. They had a marking on them, a number. He pulled his phone out and opened Google. I watched him type the numbers into the search bar. His fingers were shaking so hard he had to retype it twice. He hit search. I saw him read the result. I saw his eyes go wide. I saw his hand clamp over his mouth as if he were going to be sick. Benzodiazepines, high strength sedatives, not for children, not for allergies, for knocking people out. He looked at the bottle, then he looked up the stairs toward Maya's room. The realization hit him with the force of a sledgehammer. Dad was right, he whispered. He stood up, he pocketed the bottle. He didn't go upstairs to confront Tiffany. He knew better now. He knew she was a liar. He needed an expert opinion. He needed to be 100% sure before he destroyed his marriage. He ran out the front door into the rain. He didn't take his truck because it was blocked by the security team he had parked outside. He ran down the street, his boots splashing in the puddles until he disappeared from the camera view. I tracked his phone GPS. He was heading to the 24-hour urgent care clinic 3 blocks away. I switched my view to the clinic's security feed, which Ray had tapped into, just in case. Damon burst into the waiting room. He looked wild, wet, and frantic. He marched up to the nurse at the counter and slammed the bottle down. I need to know what this is, he demanded. My daughter took it. The nurse took one look at his face and didn't argue. She took the bottle to the back. 10 minutes later, a doctor came out, and he was a young man, tired looking but sharp. He held the bottle in a gloved hand. Sir, he said, his voice serious. How much did your daughter ingest? I do not know, Damon said, his voice breaking. She has been sleeping a lot. She wets the bed. She shakes. The doctor nodded grimly. This is flurazepam. It is a hypnotic agent. It is used for severe insomnia in adults. It has a very long half-life, which means it stays in the body for days. If you give this to a 7-year-old child, you are slowly shutting down her central nervous system. The tremors, the incontinence, those are signs of toxicity. Sir, if she took this, she is being poisoned. Damon collapsed into a plastic chair. He put his head in his hands and sobbed. It was a guttural, ugly sound. The sound of a man realizing he had abandoned his daughter to a wolf because the wolf had a pretty face. She did it, he choked out. She told me it was vitamins. She told me it was genetic. He stood up suddenly, wiping his face. His eyes were red but clear. The denial was gone. The love was gone. All that was left was cold, hard fury. I have to go to the police, he said. You should, the doctor agreed. Do you want me to call them for you? No, Damon said. I need to get her out of the house first. If the police show up with sirens, she might hurt her. I have to go back. He ran out of the clinic. He ran back through the rain, back to the house that was no longer a home but a crime scene. I watched on the monitors as he burst through the front door. He was dripping wet, shivering with rage. Tiffany, he screamed. She appeared at the top of the stairs, holding a flashlight. She looked disheveled, scared, but when she saw it was just him, her face hardened. Where have you been? She snapped. The power is out. There are men outside. Your father is doing this, Damon. You have to stop him. Damon didn't answer. He held up the orange bottle. I know what this is, Tiffany, he said, his voice steadily quiet. I know what you are doing to Maya. Tiffany froze. The flashlight beam wavered. She looked at the bottle, then at his face. She saw that the game was up. She saw that the ATM was closed and the husband was gone. So she stopped pretending. She walked down the stairs slowly, step by step. Her face changed. The fear vanished. The sweetness vanished. What was left was something cold and reptilian. So, she said, shrugging. So what? So what? Damon shouted. You are poisoning our child. You are killing her to get attention on the internet. You are a monster. I am going to the police. I am going to have you locked up for the rest of your life. He turned to the door. Damon, Tiffany said. Her voice was not loud, but it cut through the air like a whip. If you walk out that door, I will destroy you. Damon stopped. He turned back. You have nothing on me. I have done nothing but work for this family. Have you? She asked, tilting her head. You have been gone, Damon, for months at a time. Who was here feeding her? Who was here clothing her? Me. She stepped closer into the circle of light from his phone. If you go to the police, she said, smiling, a thin, cruel smile, I will tell them you forced me to do it. I will tell them you are an abusive husband who beats me and hates his daughter because she's weak. I will show them the bruises I gave myself yesterday. I will tell them you threatened to kill me if I didn't keep her quiet. Damon stared at her, horrified. Nobody will believe that, won't they? She laughed. Look at you, Damon. You are a roughneck. You are never home. You missed her birthdays. You missed her doctor appointments. To the world, you are a deadbeat dad who abandoned his family. And me, I am the devoted mother who documents every moment of her struggle online. I have thousands of witnesses who think I am a saint. Who do you think the jury will believe? The crying mother or the absent father? Damon stepped back. He looked trapped. He looked at the door, then at the stairs where Maya was sleeping. You are crazy, he whispered. Maybe, she said, but I am smart. If you call the cops, I will take you down with me. You will lose your job. You will lose your freedom, and you will definitely lose Maya because she will go into the system while we both rot in jail. She reached out and plucked the bottle from his frozen hand. Now, she said, patting his cheek, go upstairs and check on our daughter and do not wake her up. She needs her rest. She turned and walked into the kitchen, leaving him standing in the dark hallway. Damon stood there for a long time. He looked broken. He looked defeated. He had the truth, but he had no power. He was isolated in his own house, held hostage by his own wife. I watched from the hotel room, my heart aching for my son. He thought he was alone, he thought he had lost, but he forgot one thing. He forgot he had a father. And I had recorded everything, every threat, every confession, every lie. I leaned into the microphone. Hold on, son, I whispered. The cavalry is coming, and we are bringing the fire. I sat in the hotel room watching the monitors, my heart heavy in my chest. Damon was sitting on the bottom step of the staircase in the dark house, his head in his hands. He looked like a man who had lost his soul. Upstairs, Tiffany was pacing in the bedroom, muttering to herself, manic and dangerous. She had terrified him into submission. She had weaponized his absence and his guilt and used them to chain him to the floor. But she made one mistake. She thought she had isolated him. She thought she had cut the phone lines of his life. She forgot that I was the one who paid the bill. I picked up a burner phone I had bought at a convenience store. I dialed Damon's number. I watched on the screen as his phone lit up in his hand. He stared at the unknown number. He hesitated. Answer it, son, I whispered to the screen. He swiped right. Hello, he rasped. Damon, I said, my voice low and steady. Do not look at the cameras. Do not react. Just listen. Dad, he choked out. Shut up, I commanded. Listen to me. You are in a cage, but the door is unlocked. You just have to walk through it. I need you to meet me right now. He started to argue. She will hear me. She's watching. Let her watch, I said. Tell her you are going to the gas station for cigarettes. Tell her you need air. Tell her whatever you have to tell her, but get in your truck and drive to the old abandoned steel mill on 45th, the South Lot. Do it now, Damon, or you lose your daughter forever. I hung up. I watched on the monitor as he stood up. He wiped his face. He walked to the kitchen and grabbed his keys. Tiffany appeared at the top of the stairs, holding a flashlight like a weapon. Where do you think you are going? She demanded. I held my breath. I need a smoke, Damon said, his voice flat. I cannot breathe in here. Tiffany narrowed her eyes. You better come back, she threatened. If you run, I call the cops. I will be back, Damon said. He walked out. 30 minutes later, I pulled my rental car into the cracked asphalt lot of the old steel mill. It was a place of ghosts. Rusted beams jutted into the night sky like broken ribs. This was where I had worked my first job. It was fitting that this was where I would save my son. Damon's truck was already there, parked in the shadows. He was leaning against the hood, letting the rain soak him. He looked broken. I got out of the car. I walked toward him, my boots crunched on the gravel. Damon looked up. His eyes were red, swollen, and full of a pain that no father should ever see in his child. Dad, he sobbed. He didn't wait for me to reach him. He ran to me. He fell to his knees in the mud right in front of me. He grabbed my coat, burying his face in my stomach like he was 5 years old again. I am sorry, he wailed. I am so sorry, Dad. I didn't know. I swear to God, I didn't know. I let her hurt Maya. I let her hurt you. I am worthless. I am a terrible father. He was blubbering, shaking uncontrollably. The guilt was eating him alive. He was wallowing in it, drowning in it. I looked down at him. I felt pity, yes, but pity would not save us. Pity would not beat Tiffany. I needed him strong. I needed him angry. I grabbed him by the collar of his jacket and hauled him to his feet. He hung there, a limb sobbing. Look at me, I roared. He blinked, tears streaming down on his face mixed with rain. I pulled my hand back and I slapped him hard. The sound echoed off the rusted metal walls. His head snapped to the side. He froze. The sobbing stopped. He looked at me, his hand touching his cheek in shock. I grabbed his shoulders and shook him. Stop crying, I ordered. Tears are for funerals, and nobody is dead yet. Do you hear me, Damon? Maya is alive. I am alive. You are alive. He stared at me, his lip trembling. But she is a predator. I cut him off, and you are feeding her. Every tear you shed is food for her. Every second you spend feeling sorry for yourself is a second she uses to plan her next move. You are a Vance. We do not break, we get even. I saw a spark in his eyes. It was faint, but it was there. The shock had rebooted his system. I pulled him into a hug. I crushed him against me, holding him tight, letting him feel the strength in my old arms. I got you, son, I whispered into his ear. I got you. I never left you. I was just waiting for you to come home. He held on to me then. He hugged me back, his grip tightening. He took a deep, shuddering breath. What do we do, Dad? He asked, his voice steadying. How do we stop her? She has me trapped. She says she will ruin me. I pulled back and looked him in the eye. She has nothing, I said. She has bluff and bluster. But we are going to give her exactly what she wants. What do you mean? He asked, wiping the rain from his eyes. I mean, we are going to play a game, I said. I call it the Last Supper. You are going to go back to that house, Damon. You are going to walk through that door and you are going to apologize to her. Damon recoiled. Apologize after what she did? Yes, I said. You are going to tell her you were wrong. You are going to tell her you were scared and confused. But you realize she is right. You are going to tell her that you hate me for cutting off the money. You are going to tell her that you will do whatever it takes to help her get the inheritance. Damon shook his head. I cannot do that, Dad. I cannot look at her without wanting to kill her. You have to, I said, gripping his shoulders again, because we need one thing, one final nail in the coffin. We have the video of the affair. We have the toxicology report, but those are circumstantial in a family court. She can claim the affair was a mistake. She can claim the pills were accidental. We need a confession, Damon. We need her to admit she knows exactly what she's doing. We need her to say it out loud. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small black device. It was a wire, a high-tech recording device disguised as a button. Put this on your shirt, I said. It replaces the second button. It has a battery life of 6 hours. It records everything in high definition audio. Damon took the device and he looked at it like it was a grenade. You want me to trap her? I want you to hunt her, I corrected. You go back there. You play the broken husband. You tell her you are ready to sell the house. You tell her you are ready to put me in a home. You get her talking. Get her to brag, Damon. She's arrogant. If she thinks you are on her side, she will tell you everything. She will tell you how she planned it. Damon's jaw tightened. He looked at the button, then at me, and then what he asked. Then I said, we drop the hammer tomorrow night. But tonight you have to be the best actor in the world. Can you do that? Can you look the woman who poisoned your daughter in the eye and tell her you love her? Damon looked toward the city lights in the distance. He looked toward the house where his daughter was sleeping in a fever. For Maya, he whispered. For Maya, I echoed. He pinned the button to his shirt. He stood up straighter. The broken man was gone. In his place was a father who had found his spine. I will do it, he said. Good, I said. Now go, and Damon, do not let her touch the food. Damon nodded. He got back in his truck. I watched him drive away, his taillights fading into the rain. I felt a surge of pride mixed with terror. I was sending my son into the lion's den, but he was ready. I drove back to the hotel, but I did not sleep. I sat in front of the monitors waiting for Damon to arrive. I watched him walk through the front door. He was wet. He looked defeated. It was a perfect performance. Tiffany was waiting in the kitchen. She was drinking wine straight from the bottle. When she saw him, she tensed, ready to fight. Where did you go? She snapped. Damon looked at the floor. I went for a drive, he said quietly. I needed to think. And she asked, her voice sharp. You were right, Damon said. He looked up at her and his eyes were dull. Dad cut me off. I checked my email. He cut the money. He left us with nothing, Tiff. After everything I did for him. Tiffany's face transformed. A slow, predatory smile spread across her lips. She walked over to him. She put her hands on his chest. I told you, baby, she purred. I told you, he was the enemy. He wants to control us. He wants to ruin us. Damon nodded. I see that now, he said. I am sorry I yelled. I was just scared. I do not know what we are going to do. We are broke, Tiff. Tiffany laughed. She kissed him on the cheek. A Judas kiss. We are not broke, baby, she said, stepping back. We are just getting started. I knew you would come around. I knew you were smart. She walked to the counter and picked up a thick envelope. She waved it in the air. While you were out crying, I was closing the deal, she said, her eyes gleaming with greed. What deal? Damon asked, playing his part perfectly. The house, she said. I sold it, Damon. Damon froze. He didn't have to fake the shock. You sold the house, but it is in Dad's name. Tiffany giggled. She pulled a document out of the envelope. It was a purchase agreement. Not anymore, she said. I have a friend who is very good with signatures, and I found a buyer who asks zero questions as long as the price is right. An investor from overseas. He wired the deposit an hour ago. She slammed the paper on the table. $2 million, Damon, she whispered. Cashier, the closing is tomorrow at noon. Right here in this kitchen, we sign the papers, we hand over the keys, and we are gone. We take Maya, we take the money, and we leave that old man to rot in the street. Damon stared at the paper. You forged his signature, he asked quietly, leaning in so the button would catch it. I did what I had to do, Tiffany said, pouring more wine. He is senile, Damon. He does not need this house. We do. It is our inheritance. I just expedited the process. She looked at him, her eyes hard. Are you with me or not? Because if you are not, you can walk out that door right now and I will take the money and Maya and you will never see us again. Damon looked at the paper. He looked at her. I am with you, he said. Let us take the money. Tiffany squealed and threw her arms around him. We are going to be rich, she screamed. I sat in the hotel room and smiled. She had admitted it. She had admitted to the forgery. She had admitted to the theft. And she had given us the time and place of her own execution. Tomorrow at noon, I picked up my phone. I called the bishop. Get the crew ready, I said. We have a closing to attend. And bishop, bring the zip ties. The trap was set. The bait was taken. Tomorrow, Tiffany was going to sell a house she didn't own, and she was going to buy herself a one-way ticket to a cell block. The noon sun beat down on the pavement outside my house, but inside the air conditioning was running full blast, chilling the room to a morgue-like temperature. I sat in the back of a black SUV parked down the street watching the video feed on a tablet. Beside me sat Bishop, checking the load in his sidearm. It is time, Luther, he said. I nodded. I smoothed the lapels of my suit. I wasn't wearing the comfortable sweaters of a retired grandfather today. I was wearing a bespoke charcoal suit, Italian silk tie, and a watch that cost more than the car Tiffany had bought for her lover. I looked like what I was, the chairman of Vance Global Holdings, a man who commanded armies of steel workers and negotiated with sharks. Inside the house, the cast was assembled for the final act. Tiffany sat at the head of the dining table, wearing a white power suit she had bought with a stolen credit card. She looked electric, vibrating with greed and adrenaline. Next to her sat Damon, his face pale, his eyes fixed on the table. He looked like a man walking to the gallows. Across from them sat the lawyer, a sweaty little man named Mr. Crooks, a fitting name, I thought, and next to him sat the buyer, Mr. Sterling. He looked like an eccentric European investor with tinted glasses and a flashy watch. Tiffany poured champagne into crystal flutes. To new beginnings, as she toasted her voice high and tight. And to getting what we deserve, Mr. Sterling smiled, a thin, cryptic smile. Indeed, Mrs. Vance, to getting exactly what we deserve. The lawyer pushed a stack of documents across the polished wood. Everything appears to be in order, he said, wiping sweat from his upper lip. The title search was expedited. We just need the signatures here, here, and here. Tiffany grabbed the pen. She signed her name with a flourish. Then she shoved the paper toward Damon. Sign it, baby, she whispered, her eyes burning into him. Sign it and we are free. Damon picked up the pen. His hand was shaking. He hesitated. Do it, Tiffany hissed. Do not get cold feet now. Think about the money. Think about Maya. Damon looked at the camera hidden in the smoke detector. He gave a microscopic nod. He signed. Tiffany let out a breath that sounded like a scream. It is done. It is finally done. She looked at Mr. Sterling. The wire transfer, she demanded. Mr. Sterling checked his watch. I just need to verify the deed transfer with my bank. One moment, that was my cue. I opened the car door. The security team, two of Bishop's biggest guys, flanked me. We walked up the driveway, not rushing, just moving with the inevitable momentum of a landslide. I didn't use a key. I didn't knock. Bishop kicked the front door open with a single thunderous crash that shook the frame. We strode into the hallway. The sound of glass breaking came from the dining room. I walked in and Tiffany was standing, her chair knocked over behind her. The champagne flute lay shattered on the floor. What the hell? She screamed. Then she saw me. Her eyes went wide. She looked at the door, expecting police, expecting the restraining order to save her. Instead, she saw her father-in-law looking like a titan of industry, surrounded by men who looked like they ate concrete for breakfast. You, she shrieked, pointing a trembling finger. You can't be here. I have a restraining order. Call the police, Damon. Call them. Damon didn't move. He stayed seated, his hands folded on the table. I walked to the head of the table. I picked up the contract she had just signed. I looked at it. Purchase agreement for the property at 1402 Oak Street, I read aloud. Seller Luther Vance, represented by power of attorney, Buyer Shell Corporation, price $2 million. I looked at Tiffany. There is just one problem with this contract, Tiffany, I said, my voice filling the room. She glared at me, backing away. What problem? It is signed, it is legal. Get out of my house. It is not your house, I said, and it never was mine. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a blue folder. I tossed it onto the table. It slid across the wood and stopped right in front of the sweaty lawyer. Read the deed, Mr. Crooks, I commanded. Read the name of the owner of record. The lawyer opened the folder. His hand shook so bad he tore the paper. He adjusted his glasses. He read. He turned pale. Vance Global Holdings LLC, he whispered. Tiffany frowned, confusion warring with panic. What does that mean? It means, I said, stepping closer, that Luther Vance, the individual, does not own this property. The corporation does. And as the chairman and sole shareholder of Vance Global Holdings, I am the only person who can authorize a sale. I leaned on the table, looming over her. Your forgery is useless, Tiffany. You forged the signature of a tenant. You tried to sell corporate property. That is not just fraud, that is corporate espionage and grand larceny. It is a federal crime with a mandatory minimum sentence of 10 years. Tiffany looked at the lawyer. Fix this, she screamed. The lawyer stood up, backing away. I didn't know. She told me the deed was personal. I am leaving. Sit down, Bishop barked from the doorway, blocking the exit. Nobody leaves. Tiffany spun around to Mr. Sterling, the buyer. Transfer the money, she begged, grabbing his arm. Just send it. We can fix the paperwork later. You want the house, right? Mr. Sterling stood up. He took off his tinted glasses. He looked at Tiffany with cold, dead eyes. I do not want the house, Mrs. Vance, he said. I already have a house. He looked at me and nodded respectfully. Good afternoon, Mr. Vance. The sting operation was successful. We have the wire fraud attempt recorded on the bank's secure server. Tiffany dropped his arm as if he were made of fire. Who are you? She whispered. I am the head of security for Vance Global Holdings, Mr. Sterling said, and I am not buying your house. I am building the case against you. The room spun. I could see it in her eyes. The walls were closing in. The money was smoke. The buyer was a plant. The lawyer was a coward. And her husband, she looked at Damon. You knew, she whispered. Damon stood up slowly. He looked at her with eyes that were no longer full of love, but full of pity and disgust. I knew, he said. You set me up, she screamed. You traitor! You set me up! She lunged at him, her nails aiming for his eyes. Damon caught her wrists effortlessly. He pushed her back. You poisoned my daughter, he said, his voice shaking with the suppressed rage. You drugged her. You made her sick for clicks, for money. You are the traitor, Tiffany. You betrayed everything. Tiffany stumbled back, hitting the sideboard. She looked around the room. She was surrounded. Me, the bishop, the fake buyer, her husband. She was a rat in a trap, and the water was rising. She started to laugh. It was a high, broken sound that made the hair on my arms stand up. You think you won? She giggled. You think you can just take everything from me? I am the mother. I am the victim. The world loves me. The world knows, I said, holding up my phone. The live stream from my hotel room is still running, Tiffany. Or should I say, the audio feed. I tapped the screen. 5,000 people just heard you try to sell a house you don't own, I said. They heard you admit to the forgery. They heard you beg for the money. The comments are rolling in, Tiffany. They do not love you anymore. They want your head on a platter. Her face crumbled. The reality of her destruction hit her all at once. The fame, the money, the freedom, it was all gone. She looked at the hallway. She looked at the stairs. Then her eyes landed on Damon's work bag, which was sitting on the chair by the door where he had left it when he arrived. Damon was a field engineer. He worked in dangerous places. He carried protection. A Glock 19. Tiffany dove for the bag. Stop her, Bishop shouted, reaching for his weapon, but she was too close. She ripped the zipper open. She pulled out the black gun. She spun around, leveling it at us. Her hands were shaking so hard the barrel waved back and forth like a metronome. Back off, she screamed. Back off, or I swear to God I will shoot. Bishop and his men froze, their hands hovering over their holsters. They couldn't shoot. Not with Damon in the line of fire. Not with me there. Tiffany, she panted, her eyes wild. You ruined everything, you old bastard. You ruined my life. She swung the gun toward me. I stared down the barrel. I didn't flinch. Put it down, Tiffany, I said. It is over? It is not over, she shrieked. I am not going to jail. I am not going to be poor. Just then a small voice came from the hallway. Mommy, we all froze. Maya was standing there. She was holding her teddy bear, rubbing her eyes. She had woken up from the noise. She looked tiny and frail in her oversized pajamas. Mommy, why are you holding Daddy's gun? She asked, her voice trembling. Tiffany's eyes snapped to the child. A new terrifying idea formed in her mind. A way out. A shield. She didn't hesitate. She lunged across the room. She grabbed Maya by her hair and yanked her in front of her. Maya screamed. Tiffany jammed the barrel of the gun against my granddaughter's temple. Nobody moved, she roared, her face twisted into a mask of pure madness. I am not leaving here empty handed, she hissed, tightening her grip on the sobbing child. Open the door. Give me the keys to the SUV and transfer the money now, or I swear I will paint this room with her brains. I looked at Maya's terrified eyes. I looked at the gun pressed against her soft skin. My blood ran cold. The game had changed. This wasn't about money anymore. This wasn't about justice. This was a hostage situation, and the hostage was the only thing in the world that mattered. The sirens outside were a symphony of chaos. Red and blue lights flashed through the windows, painting the walls in violent strokes of color. A megaphone boomed from the street demanding surrender, but inside the dining room, the air was so thick with tension it felt like breathing underwater. Tiffany stood with her back to the broken window, clutching Maya against her chest. The gun was pressed hard into the soft hollow of my granddaughter's temple. Maya had stopped screaming. She was frozen in a state of shock, her eyes wide and vacant, staring at nothing. Tiffany was panting. Her hair was wild, her makeup smeared. She looked like a cornered rat that had decided to bite. Back off, she screamed at the door. Tell them to back off or I will do it. I swear I will send her to heaven right now. Bishop raised his hand, signaling his men to hold their positions. Damon was on his knees, his hands in his hair, sobbing silently. I stood like a statue. I could not move, I could not breathe. One twitch of a finger and my legacy would be wiped out. Then Tiffany did something that proved she was truly lost to madness. She reached into her pocket with her free hand. She pulled out her phone. She did not call a lawyer. She did not call a negotiator. She opened her streaming app. She tapped the screen and the little red live icon appeared. She held the phone up, framing herself, the gun, and Maya's terrified face in the shot. Hi guys, she said, her voice cracking. Her eyes were manic, darting between us and the screen. I know you are watching. I know you heard the lies. She glanced at the comment section. It was scrolling so fast it was a blur. They are lying about me, she shouted at the phone. My husband, his father, they set me up. They are trying to steal my baby. They are trying to frame me. I watched the screen of my own phone, which I still held in my hand. The comments were not supportive. They were vicious. Put the gun down, you psycho, one read. You admitted to poisoning her, another said. Let the girl go. But Tiffany was too far gone to read them. She was talking to the phantom audience in her head, the one that adored her. I did everything for this family, she yelled at the camera, spitting as she spoke. I sacrificed my body, I sacrificed my youth. And what did I get? Nothing. Just a husband who is never there and a brat who is always sick. She shook Maya roughly. Maya whimpered. Yeah, she is sick. Tiffany laughed a high, shrill sound. Because I made her sick. You want the truth? There is the truth. I gave her the pills. I gave her the sedatives. The room went deadly silent. Even the police negotiator outside seemed to pause. Why, she asked the camera, answering a question no one had asked aloud. Because she is useless otherwise. She is boring. She is average. But a sick child is a gold mine. People care about a sick child. They donate. They send gifts. They pay attention. She looked at Damon, who was staring at her with horror. And I needed the money, she spat. Because you are broke, Damon. You are a loser. You could not give me the life I deserved. So I took it. I took it from her health. I took it from your daddy's bank account. She laughed again, shifting the gun slightly. And yeah, I slept with Chad. So what? He is a real man. He appreciates me. He does not leave me alone for months to go play with oil drills. He knows how to treat a queen. I looked at the phone screen. The internet had turned. It was a tidal wave of hate. Monster. Child killer. Hope you rot. Someone shoot her. Tiffany glanced at the screen, expecting hearts and likes. She saw the wall of text. She saw the hate. Her face fell. The delusion shattered. You are all against me, she whispered. Her hand on the gun trembled. Even my fans, you are all traitors. She was losing it. She was spiraling. And a spiraling person with a gun is a ticking bomb. I stepped forward. Tiffany, I said, my voice low and calm. She snapped the gun back toward me, dragging Maya with her. Stay back, she shrieked. I held up my hands, palms open. Look at the phone, Tiffany, I said. Look at them. They know. The whole world knows. There is no way out of this. You cannot spin this. She looked at the screen again. The comments were calling for her death. She started to cry. Ugly, desperate tears. It is not fair, she sobbed. I just wanted to be happy. I just wanted to be rich. I took another step. Let her go, Tiffany, I said. She is just a child. She has nothing to do with this. This is between you and me. Me, she laughed bitterly. You are the reason for all of this. You and your money. You hoarded it. You watched us struggle. You made me do this. Fine, I said. I am the villain. I accept that. So punish me. I walked past the table. I walked past Damon. I stood 10 feet away from her. Let Maya go, I said, and take me. Damon lifted his head. Dad, no. Shut up, Damon, I commanded without looking at him. I looked at Tiffany. I am the one with the money, I said. I am the one who cut off your card. I am the one who recorded you. I am the one who brought the police. I tapped my chest. I am your problem, not her. She is worth nothing to you now. The sympathy train is over. The donations are gone. But me, I am the man who ruined you. Do not you want revenge? Tiffany stared at me. Her eyes narrowed. The hate in them was pure and concentrated. You are right, she whispered. I hate you. I hate you more than anything. Then take me, I said. Trade her for me. I will stand right here. I won't move. You can hold the gun to my head. You can use me as a shield to walk out of here. I am a much better hostage. I am the chairman. I am valuable. She considered it. She looked at Maya, who was dead weight in her arms. She looked at me. Okay, she said. She shoved Maya forward. Maya stumbled and fell to the floor. Run, Maya, I shouted. Run to daddy. Maya scrambled on her hands and knees, crawling toward Damon. Damon grabbed her, pulling her into his arms, covering her body with his own. Now it was just me and Tiffany. I did not move. I stood tall. I smoothed my tie. Come here, she ordered, waving the gun. I walked toward her. I stopped when the barrel was inches from my forehead. I could see the rifling inside the black metal hole. I could smell the gun oil. Turn around, she hissed. I turned around. She grabbed the collar of my jacket and jammed the gun into the base of my skull. We are walking out, she screamed at the room. If anyone follows us, I will blow his head off. She started to push me toward the back door. But I stopped. I planted my feet. Move, she screamed, hitting me with the gun. No, I said. What, she shrieked. I said no, I repeated. You are not going anywhere, Tiffany. The police are out back too. Bishop's men are on the roof. There is no escape. She pressed the gun harder. It hurt. I will kill you, she screamed. I swear I will kill you. Do it, I said. The room went silent. Even the sirens seemed to fade. Do it, I said. Again, my voice steady. Pull the trigger. End it. Because that is the only way you win. You kill me and you go to prison for life, or you surrender and you go to prison for life. Either way, you lose. She was breathing hard behind me. Rapid, shallow breaths. She was shaking. You think I won't? She whispered. I think you are a coward, I said. I think you poison little girls because you are too weak to fight real battles. I think you steal from old men because you are too lazy to work. I think you are pathetic. She screamed. It was a sound of pure animal rage. Dee, she shrieked. I braced myself. I closed my eyes. I thought of my wife waiting for me on the other side. I thought of Maya safe in her father's arms. I felt her finger tighten on the trigger. I heard the mechanism engage, the spring coiling, the hammer falling. Click. The sound was loud in the silent room, a metallic snap. But there was no boom, there was no fire, there was no pain, just silence. I opened my eyes. Tiffany pulled the trigger again. Click. She pulled it again. Click, click, click. She stared at the gun in her hand. She looked at it with betrayal. Why, she whispered, why won't it shoot? From the corner of the room, Damon stood up. He was holding Maya, but he was looking at Tiffany. His face was wet with tears, but his eyes were clear for the first time in years. Because I took the firing pin out, he said. Tiffany looked at him. Her mouth dropped open. What, she breathed. Last night, Damon said, his voice strong. When I came home, when I went for a smoke, I didn't just go for a smoke. I went to my bag, I took the gun apart, I removed the firing pin and I dropped it in the storm drain. He took a step toward her. I knew you were unstable, he said. I knew you were dangerous, but I never thought I would have to use it to save my father from my wife. Tiffany looked at the useless gun. She looked at me. She looked at Damon. She realized it was over, really over. She dropped the gun. It clattered to the floor. Then she ran. She bolted for the back door, scrambling like a rat escaping a sinking ship. But she didn't make it. The back door burst open. Bishop stood there filling the frame. He didn't say a word. He just extended a massive arm and clotheslined her. Tiffany hit the floor hard. And then the police were everywhere. They swarmed in through the front, the back, the windows. Get on the ground, they shouted. But Tiffany was already on the ground. She was curling into a ball, sobbing, screaming that it wasn't fair. I watched as they cuffed her. I watched as they dragged her up. She looked at me one last time as they hauled her past. Her eyes were black holes of hate. You did this, she spat. I adjusted my jacket. I picked up the glass of water that had miraculously survived on the table. I took a sip. No, Tiffany, I said. You did this. I just turned on the lights. The sound of handcuffs ratcheting tight is a specific kind of music. It is a cold mechanical click that signals the end of freedom, and for Tiffany, it was the loudest sound in the room. I stood by the shattered dining table watching as two officers hauled her up from the floor. Her white power suit was stained with dust and tears. Her hair was a wild tangle around her face. The arrogance that had worn like armor for 10 years was gone, replaced by the feral panic of a trapped animal. She did not go quietly. She kicked. She screamed. She spat at the officer who read her rights. You cannot do this, she shrieked, her voice raw and ugly. Do you know who I am? I am a mother. I am a victim. These men attacked me. They held me hostage. The officer did not blink. Ma'am, you are under arrest for attempted murder, fraud, and child endangerment. You have the right to remain silent. I suggest you use it, I said quietly. She spun her head toward me, her eyes bulging. This is a setup, she screamed at me. You planned this, you and your son. You hate me because I am white. You hate me because I am beautiful. You are just a racist old man trying to steal my baby. I did not flinch. I did not get angry. I just looked at her with the fatigue of a man who had spent too long wading through sewage. Take her away, I said to the officer. They dragged her out. She was still screaming about discrimination and conspiracies as they shoved her into the back of the cruiser. I watched through this broken window as the red and blue lights painted her face in alternating shades of guilt. Damon stood beside me. He was trembling. He was holding Maya so tight I thought he might crush her. But the little girl was not crying anymore. She was just staring at the door where her mother had vanished. Is she coming back, Daddy? She whispered. No, baby. Damon choked out, tears streaming down his face. No, she's never coming back. The house was suddenly swarming with uniforms. Crime scene technicians were taking photos of the gun on the floor. A paramedic was checking Maya's vitals. My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was Ray. We got him, Ray, said his voice crackling with satisfaction. Where I asked. Oh, Harry International. Terminal 5, he was trying to board a flight to Tulum. He had $40,000 in cash stuffed into a gym bag. Chad, the lover, the accomplice, did he run? I asked. Like a rabbit, Ray laughed. He saw the uniforms and tried to bolt through the security checkpoint, tased him right in front of the duty-free shop. He is singing like a canary, Luther. He is blaming everything on Tiffany. He says she masterminded the whole thing. He says he didn't know about the kid being sick. He knew, I said. He spent the money. He is in custody. Ray confirmed. We are bringing him to the precinct now. Good work, Luther. I hung up. The circle was closed. The rats were in the cage. But the night was not over. We had to go to the station and we had to go to the hospital. 3 hours later, I sat in the observation room of the precinct looking through the one-way glass. Tiffany was sitting at a metal table. She was handcuffed to the chair. Her makeup was ruined, running down her face in black streaks. She looked small in that room. The interrogation room strips away all the pretense. There are no ring lights here, no filters, just harsh fluorescent buzzing and concrete walls. She was still talking, still lying. I demand a lawyer, she yelled at Detective Johnson, and I want to file charges against Luther Vance. He threatened me. He has a history of violence. This is a hate crime. Detective Johnson sat across from her, calm as a frozen lake. He opened a file folder. Mrs. Vance, he said, we have the video. What video? She snapped. The one he faked. He is rich. He can fake anything. Johnson shook his head. No, ma'am. We have the video from the teddy bear. Tiffany went still. Her mouth hung open slightly. The bear, she whispered. We recovered a recording device from a stuffed animal in your daughter's room, Johnson said. We have 48 hours of footage, Mrs. Vance. We have you crushing the pills. We have you force feeding them to the child. We have you telling her she is worthless. We have you admitting to your lover that you are keeping her sick for the donations. He slid a photo across the table. It was a still frame from the video I recorded. Tiffany's face twisted in rage, looming over a terrified Maya. Is this a deep fake? Mrs. Vance Johnson asked. Or is this you telling your 7-year-old daughter she's a paycheck? Tiffany stared at the photo. Her breathing hitched. She looked up at the mirror. She knew I was behind it. She couldn't see me, but she could feel me. It was just tough love, she stammered, trying to pivot. She was hysterical. I had to calm her down. The pills were just to help her sleep. I am a good mother. Ask anyone online. They love me, Johnson sighed. He opened another folder. We also have the toxicology report from the hospital. Your daughter's blood is saturated with clozapine and flurazepam. Do you know what those drugs do to a child, Mrs. Vance? She did not answer. She looked down at her hands. Attempted murder, Johnson said. That is what the DA is charging you with, along with 20 counts of wire fraud, 10 counts of identity theft, and conspiracy. Tiffany started to cry. But it wasn't the fakey crying she did for the camera. It was the ugly sobbing of a narcissist who realizes the audience has left the building. It wasn't my fault, she wailed. I had to do it. We were broke. Damon is useless. He's never there. I deserve better. I deserved a life. She looked up, her eyes wild. It is Luther's fault. He had millions and he gave us nothing. He watched us struggle. He made me do this. If he had just shared his money, none of this would have happened. I turned away from the glass. I had heard enough. She was never going to take responsibility. Until her dying breath, she would believe she was the victim of my greed, not the architect of her own destruction. Let us go, I said to Damon, who was standing in the corner looking like a ghost. We left the station. The air outside was cool and clean. It felt good to breathe it after the stench of her lies. We drove straight to the hospital. Maya had been admitted for observation and detox. The doctors wanted to flush the drugs out of her system and assess the damage. The pediatric wing was quiet. The walls were painted with cheerful cartoon animals that seemed out of place given the gravity of the situation. We found Dr. Evans waiting for us outside Maya's room. He looked tired. He held a clipboard against his chest. Luther, he said, nodding to me. Damon? How is she? Damon asked, his voice cracking. Is she going to be okay? Evans took a deep breath. He didn't sugarcoat it. He knew better. She is stable, he said. We have started the chelation therapy to remove the heavy metals and the drug residue. She is a fighter. But he hesitated. But what, I asked, stepping forward. But we caught this just in time, Evans said gravely. I mean that literally. I looked at her liver enzymes. I looked at her kidney function. He tapped the clipboard. Another month, Luther. Maybe 6 weeks at most. If she had continued ingesting that cocktail of antipsychotics and sedatives, her liver would have failed. It was already starting to scar. We are seeing signs of early cirrhosis. In a 7-year-old, Damon made a sound like a wounded animal. He leaned against the wall, sliding down until he hit the floor. He buried his face in his knees. Cirrhosis, he sobbed. My baby. I put a hand on his shoulder. She is alive, son, I said. We stopped it. Evans nodded. The liver is resilient, especially in children. It can regenerate, but she's going to need care. She's going to need a strict diet, and she's going to need a lot of therapy. The psychological damage, well, that is not my department, but the withdrawal from these drugs is going to be brutal. She is addicted, Luther, physically addicted. I looked through the glass window of the room. Maya was sleeping. She looked so small in the big hospital bed. Tubes were running into her arms. Machines were beeping softly, monitoring her heartbeat. Can we see her? I asked. She's waking up, Evans said. Go in, but be gentle. She's confused. I pulled Damon up. Stand up, son, I said. She needs her father, not a puddle on the floor. Damon wiped his face and he nodded. He took a breath and he composed himself. We walked into the room. The air smelled of antiseptic and ozone. The only light came from the monitors casting a blue glow over the bed. We stood by the bedside. I watched her chest rise and fall. I watched her eyelids flutter. Maya, Damon whispered, taking her hand. She stirred. She groaned, a low sound of discomfort. Her eyes opened slowly. They were not glassy anymore. They were tired and sad, but they were clear. She looked at Damon. Then she looked at me. She blinked, trying to focus. Grandpa, she rasped, her throat dry. I am here, baby, I said, leaning down. I am right here. She looked around the room. She looked at the door. She looked at the empty chair in the corner. She took a breath. And then she asked the question that broke me into a million pieces, the question that showed just how much she understood, just how much she had been living in terror. Is mommy gone? She whispered. I looked at Damon. He was crying silent tears. Yes, baby, I said, my voice thick with emotion. She is gone. Maya looked at me. She didn't cry. She didn't ask where. She didn't ask when she was coming back. She just let out a long, long sigh. Her little shoulders relaxed into the mattress. The tension that had held her body rigid for months seemed to evaporate. Good, she said, closing her eyes again. She squeezed my finger. I do not want the blue candy anymore, Grandpa. I kissed her forehead. No more blue candy, Maya, I promised. No more monsters, just us. She drifted back to sleep, holding on to my hand like it was an anchor. I looked at Damon. He was looking at his daughter with a look of pure, fierce love. The blindness was gone. The weakness was gone. I am sorry, Dad, he whispered. I know, I said. We stood there in the quiet of the hospital room, two men guarding the only thing that mattered. Tiffany was in a cell. Chad was in a cell. The house was a crime scene. But Maya was safe, and as I watched the steady rhythm of her heartbeat on the monitor, I knew that the rebuilding could finally begin. We had torn the house down to the studs. Now we had to build it back stronger. The wheels of justice usually turn slow, but when you grease them with the best legal team money can buy and a mountain of evidence that would make a cartel boss blush, they grind bone into dust fast. 6 months had passed since the night of the siege, 6 months of deposition, hearings, and motions. Tiffany's lawyers tried everything. They pleaded insanity, they pleaded coercion, they even tried to argue that the video of her confession was deep fake technology created by my limitless resources. But you cannot fake a toxicology report, and you cannot fake the signature of a forger who is singing to the FBI for a reduced sentence. I sat in the front row of the gallery, my back as straight as a steel beam. I was wearing my best suit, the one I usually reserve for board meetings and funerals. Today felt a little bit like both. It was the funeral of my son's marriage and the board meeting for the rest of Maya's life. Damon sat next to me. He looked better. The rig tan had faded, replaced by the pallor of a man who had spent months in lawyers' offices and therapy sessions, but his eyes were clear. He wasn't the lost boy anymore. He was a man carrying a heavy load, and he was carrying it without complaining. The courtroom was packed. The media had eaten the story up. The social media mom who poisoned her child. It was the headline of the year. Strangers filled the backbenches, whispering and pointing. They wanted to see the monster. And there she was. Tiffany was led in by two bailiffs. She looked nothing like the woman who had strutted through my house in designer heels. The county jail had scrubbed her clean. Her hair was dull and pulled back in a severe bun. Her skin, without the layers of expensive foundation and filters, looked grey and splotchy. She wore an orange jumpsuit that hung off her frame. She looked small. She looked ordinary. She scanned the room, looking for a friendly face. She found none. Her parents had disowned her after the fraud details came out. Her friends, the ones she drank mimosas with, had vanished like smoke. Chad was already serving time in a federal facility. She was alone. When her eyes met mine, she flinched. Good. The judge entered, the Honorable Justice Halloway, a woman with eyes like flint who had zero patience for child abusers. She wasted no time. Tiffany Vance, she said, her voice echoing in the silent room, you have been found guilty of 1 count of attempted murder in the first degree, 20 counts of wire fraud, 10 counts of identity theft, and 1 count of conspiracy to commit forgery. Tiffany started to cry. It was a reflex for her. Tears were her currency, but inflation had hit hard and nobody was buying. Your Honor, she sobbed, standing up, her chains rattling. I am sorry. I was sick. I needed help. I love my daughter. Judge Halloway looked over her glasses. You poisoned your daughter, Mrs. Vance. You administered a lethal cocktail of antipsychotics to a 7-year-old child for months. You did this not because you were mentally ill, but because you were greedy. The evidence shows a clear pattern of calculation. You monetized her suffering. You used her pain to buy luxury items. That is not sickness, that is evil. The judge shuffled her papers. The state recommends the maximum sentence, and I am inclined to agree. Tiffany let out a wail that sounded like a siren. I sentence you to 25 years in the state penitentiary without the possibility of parole for the first 20. You will also pay restitution to the estate of Luther Vance in the amount of $200,000, though I doubt you will ever earn enough to pay a dime of it. 25 years. Maya would be 32 years old when her mother breathed free air again. Tiffany collapsed into her chair, sobbing into her hands. Her lawyer, a public defender who looked like he wanted to be anywhere else, patted her shoulder awkwardly. But the hearing wasn't over. There was one more piece of business, the custody hearing. Usually this would be done in family court, but because of the criminal nature of the case, Judge Halloway was presiding over the placement of the child to ensure immediate protection. Mr. Damon Vance, the judge said, please approach. Damon stood up. He buttoned his jacket. He walked to the stand. He looked at Tiffany. Then he looked at the judge. Mr. Vance, the judge said, softening her tone slightly. Under normal circumstances, custody would revert automatically to the surviving biological parent. You are the father. You have a job. You have a home. I held my breath. We had talked about this. We had argued about this. But in the end, Damon had made a decision that broke my heart, and he led it at the same time. Your Honor, Damon said, his voice shaking but firm. I love my daughter more than anything in this world. She is my life. He paused, taking a deep breath. But I failed her. I was absent, I was blind, I let this happen under my nose because I was too focused on being a provider and not enough on being a father. I am currently in counseling, I am rebuilding my life, I am learning how to be the parent she deserves. But right now, I am not that man yet. I am working on an oil rig schedule that keeps me away for months. Maya needs a stability, she needs constant medical care for her liver. She needs to be in one place with someone who never looked away. Damon turned and looked at me. I am requesting that the court grant full legal guardianship to my father Luther Vance. A murmur went through the courtroom. It was unheard of. A father voluntarily giving up custody. Tiffany lifted her head, staring at Damon in shock. You cannot do that, she screamed. He stole her from me. You are giving her to the enemy. Silence, the judge banged her gavel. Mr. Vance continued. Damon ignored Tiffany. He spoke only to the judge. My father saved her life, Your Honor. When I was blind, he saw. When I was weak, he was strong. He has the resources, the time, and the love to heal her. I will be there. I am taking a local job. I will be in her life every single day. But legal custody, the power to protect her, that belongs to him until I earn it back. He said it with such humility, such painful honesty that the room went silent. It takes a big man to stand up and say, he isn't ready. It takes a hero to sacrifice his pride for his child's safety. Judge Holloway nodded slowly. She looked at me. Mr. Luther Vance, do you accept this responsibility? I stood up. I do, Your Honor, I said, with my life. So ordered, the judge said, slamming the gavel down. Guardianship is granted to Luther Vance with generous visitation for the father. This court is adjourned. It was over. The bailiffs moved in to take Tiffany away. She wasn't crying anymore. The reality had set in. The numbness of the long road ahead. They hauled her up. She shuffled toward the side door, the chains on her ankles clanking a rhythm of defeat. She had to pass right by me to get to the exit. The room held its breath. She stopped. She looked at me. Her eyes were empty craters. You won, she whispered. Are you happy, old man? You destroyed everything. I looked at her. I looked at the woman who had tried to gaslight me, who had tried to steal my legacy, who had hurt my little girl. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I didn't give her the satisfaction of seeing me angry. I reached up and slowly, deliberately adjusted the knot of my silk tie. I smoothed my lapels. I leaned in close so only she could hear. I didn't destroy anything, Tiffany. I said, my voice low and rough like grinding stones. I just took out the trash. Her face twisted. She wanted to spit at me. She wanted to scream, but I wasn't done. And Tiffany, I added, let this be a lesson you think about every night in that cell. You can mess with my money. You can mess with my house. You can even mess with my son. But you made one fatal mistake. I looked her dead in the eye. You messed with my granddaughter, and you should never ever mess with a grandfather who has nothing left to lose but her. The bailiff shoved her forward. Move it, Vance. She stumbled away. She disappeared through the heavy oak door. I watched it close. The click of the latch was the most satisfying sound I had ever heard. Damon was standing beside me. He put his hand on my back. Let us go home, Dad, he said. Maya is waiting. I nodded. We walked out of the courtroom together. Two men, one old, one young, both scarred, both standing. We had a farm to buy. We had a little girl to heal. And we had a life to live. The nightmare was over. The sun was shining on the concrete steps of the courthouse. And for the first time in a long time, the air tasted sweet. The ink on the deed of sale was still wet when Luther handed the keys to the young couple standing on the porch. They looked at the house with the same hopeful eyes he once had 40 years ago, seeing a canvas for dreams where he now saw only a crime scene of memories. He did not tell them about the nights he spent listening to the floorboards creak, wondering if the footsteps belonged to family or enemies. He did not tell them that the kitchen island, which they admired for its granite finish, was where his daughter-in-law had mixed the poison that nearly stole his mind. He simply smiled, a tight, polite expression that did not reach his eyes, and wished them luck. As he walked down the driveway to his truck, he did not look back. To look back was to invite the ghosts to follow him. He was not leaving a home, he was leaving a battlefield where the bodies had finally been cleared. The drive to the new property took 2 hours, moving from the suffocating grid of the city to the rolling, unkempt hills of the countryside. He had bought the farm with cash, a final conversion of his old life into his new one. It was not a grand estate. The farmhouse was weathered, the paint peeling like sunburned skin, and the fences leaned precariously against the wind. It was a place that required work, sweat, and attention. It was perfect. It was exactly what they needed. A place that demanded to be built, not just inhabited. Damon was already there when Luther pulled up the gravel drive. His son was standing by the bed of his own truck, but he looked different. The expensive suit was gone, replaced by jeans and a flannel shirt that still held the stiffness of being brand new. For years, Damon had been a man hollowed out by the corporate chase, blind to the viper in his own bed because he was too busy looking at quarterly reports. Now he looked like a man waking up from a long coma. He held a sledgehammer in one hand and a crowbar in the other. He was staring at the rotting wood of the front porch with a focus Luther had not seen since Damon was a boy building tree houses. Luther stepped out of the truck, the silence of the country ringing in his ears. It was a clean silence devoid of sirens and lies. Damon turned, his face smeared with dust. He did not say hello. He simply pointed to the barn that leaned dangerously to the left. He said he had already checked the foundation. He said the beams were solid, but the roof needed to be stripped. He said he had resigned this morning. He did not ask for approval. He stated it as a fact as necessary as breathing. He said he was done building empires for men who would replace him in a week. He was here to manage the land. He was here to be a father and a son roles he had neglected for the title of provider. Luther nodded. There were no hugs, no tearful reunions. Those were for people who had not seen the darkness they had seen. Their bond was forged now in the iron of survival. They picked up the tools and went to work. For the next 3 weeks, the sound of the farm was the rhythm of hammers and the saws. They tore down the walls that held mold and rot. They ripped up the carpets that smelled of neglect. They worked until their muscles screamed and their hands blistered, bleeding the toxicity of the past out through their pores. They did not talk about the betrayal. They did not speak her name. They spoke in measurements, in angles, in the logistics of survival. Maya arrived a week after the renovation began. She looked like a ghost of the vibrant child she used to be. Her skin was pale, translucent under the harsh sun, and her eyes held the dull, flat look of someone who had seen too much confusion. The drugs and the subtle poisoning had left her frail, her body trembling with the aftershocks of withdrawal and weakness. She sat on the steps of the new porch, wrapped in a blanket despite the warmth of the afternoon, watching her father and grandfather work. She did not speak much. She flinched at loud noises, but the farm demanded nothing from her but her presence. The recovery was slow. It did not happen in a montage. It happened in the quiet moments. It happened when Luther asked her to help him plant the vegetable garden. She held the seeds in her hand, small and insignificant, and he told her that everything big starts small and in the dark. He taught her how to push them into the earth, how to cover them gently. She got dirt under her fingernails. It was the first time in months he had seen her touch something that wasn't a screen or a pill bottle. Damon took over the heavy labor. He was up before dawn, tending to the few cattle they had bought, fixing the irrigation, clearing the brush that had choked the property for years. The physical exhaustion seemed to cleanse him. The guilt that had haunted his eyes, the guilt of not protecting his daughter, of not seeing the truth, began to fade, replaced by the satisfaction of a fence that stood straight of a barn door that finally closed properly. He was present. He was there for breakfast. He was there for dinner. He listened when Maya spoke about her nightmares. He did not try to fix them with money. He fixed them by being there when she woke up. Months bled into seasons. The farm began to breathe. The peeling paint was replaced by fresh white coats that gleamed in the sun. The garden burst into life, green and chaotic and beautiful. Maya changed with the land. The pallor left her skin, replaced by a flush of color from the wind and the sun. She gained weight. She started to run. At first, it was just to the mailbox, then to the fence line. Then she was running through the fields, her laughter carrying on the wind, a sound that stopped Luther in his tracks every time he heard it. It was the sound of a victory, more profound than any court verdict. One evening, as the sun began to dip below the horizon, painting the sky in bruises of purple and gold, Luther sat on the newly built porch in his rocking chair. The wood was smooth under his hands, sanded and stained by his sun. The air smelled of cut grass and damp earth. He could see Damon in the distance, walking back from the barn, his gait heavy but steady. He could see Maya chasing a farm dog. They had adopted, her legs strong, her lungs clear, the shadows of the past burned away by the hard work of the present. Luther reached for the cup on the small table beside him. It was a simple ceramic mug, steam rising from it in delicate curls. He had brewed the tea himself. He had boiled the water. He had picked the mint leafy from the garden he planted. He knew every ingredient. He knew every hand that had touched it. He lifted the cup to his lips and took a long, slow sip. It tasted of nothing but mint and water and peace. He lowered the cup and let out a breath he felt he had been holding for years. He watched his son and granddaughter, 3 generations broken by greed and rebuilt by their own hands. They were not just survivors, they were the architects of a new world. The old house was gone, the money was safe, the enemy was vanquished not by violence but by their refusal to be destroyed. Luther smiled a genuine expression that crinkled the corners of his eyes. The sun had set on the nightmare. This was the morning. They say blood is thicker than water, but sometimes greed is the thickest of all. I spent my life building a fortress to protect my family, never realizing the enemy was already sleeping in the guest room. We often ignore the red flags because we want to believe in the goodness of those we love. But protecting your loved ones sometimes means becoming the villain in their story until the truth comes out. Trust is a luxury, verification is a necessity. Never let your guard down, even at your own dinner table. The wolf doesn't always howl, sometimes she smiles. Did you like my story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you liked the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see two new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story with love and respect.